One Kim Moon-hyuk was a genius who never missed a calculation and never forgot. A debt multiplying the family fortune while his lazy relatives just spent it. He was completely untouchable, or so he thought, until an executive took a massive loan from them and tried to scam them. Fleeing the country by boat, Moon-hyuk went after him alone, crushed his bodyguards, and told him that he owed them, and nobody gets away without paying while they are still breathing, so he tied the man up and threw him into the sea until he remembered where the money was hidden. He paid. Heading back home, Moon-hyuk started reflecting on how his grandfather had built their empire, but his uncles, the current owners, were only losing money while he was the only one actually solving the hard problems. He did it all for his grandmother, who raised him when his parents died, owing everything to her, but gratitude did not exist in that family. After his grandfather died, the inheritance war began, and they lured him in with a fake urgent job. They betrayed him, tying him up inside his car and taking him to the coast, where they pushed the car into the sea, as if it were totally normal to see him inside a car sinking into the deep. As the vehicle sank into the dark water, he thought this ending was completely unfair. After 30 years of loyal service and hard work, his own uncles murdered him just to keep the entire fortune for themselves. Talk about cold-blooded. Fate had other plans. Opening his eyes, he was not at the bottom of the ocean but lying on a warm beach. It was 1990, and he was 17 again, but armed with 40 years of experience, pure hatred, and absolute knowledge of the future. But suddenly a random thug jumped him. As Moon-hyuk got up from the kick, he noticed something curious right in front of him. A large group of high school students were exchanging heavy punches, making the young hero think that even in paradise, chaos reigned supreme. The brawl was incredibly intense, with kids taking brutal kicks and others getting slammed to the ground. The beach became a total battlefield, and Moon-hyuk had absolutely no idea what was happening. When one of the punks rushed him, Moon-hyuk easily landed a devastating punch on his face. He realized his young body felt incredibly light and fast. Right after that, two more thugs charged at him, but with insane speed and strength, Moon-hyuk managed to send them flying with kicks. None of them could match Moon-hyuk, who dominated every single clash. To make things even wilder, he effortlessly dropped the thugs. I won. Standing victorious, Moon-hyuk gave the surviving punks a chilling, threatening look and warned them they had lost and better beat it. Terrified, the cowardly punks scrambled away as fast as possible. Exhausted from fighting, Moon-hyuk sat down on the sand. Suddenly, one of his friends started taunting the losers, asking where they thought they were going and promising a worse beating next time. This guy then jogged over, asking if Moon-hyuk was okay, mentioning he had come to the beach to flirt with girls but only found guys. He offered him cigarette. Noticing how much Moon-hyuk was sweating, this got our main character wondering if this guy was really just a high schooler. Spotting the name on his uniform, Moon-hyuk realized this was Leung-soo, his best friend from elementary school. Just then another friend showed up, cheering that Moon-hyuk was still the absolute best at fighting since he had thrashed everyone alone. This was Park-hun, a close friend whose father was a police officer, which always helped. After helping them, Moon-hyuk suddenly asked where they were, leaving his friends completely stunned. They were completely confused, unable to understand what he meant. Their answer, Gwangali Beach. They asked if he had somehow hit his head. He was speaking in a strange Seoul dialect and asking these totally bizarre questions. Ignoring their concern, Moon-hyuk urgently demanded to know the exact date and year. September 21st, 1990. Now they were absolutely certain his brain was scrambled. Moon-hyuk stared at his surroundings, desperately trying to make sense of this reality. Piecing the clues together, he realized the impossible had actually occurred. He had drowned in the ocean and somehow traveled 30 years back in time. Unaware, his hungry friends started looking around for a hot bowl of ramen. But wait, the moment he remembered that exact date, absolute terror hit him. He bolted at full speed, leaving his bewildered friends eating his dust. Today was the exact day his beloved grandmother died from a sudden heart attack. Back then, doctors said she would have survived if help had arrived sooner. Racing to his old house, Moon-hyuk was greeted by his very much alive grandmother. She warmly asked if school had ended early today as he reached out. The moment he touched her warm hands, his composure shattered into tears. Seeing him gasping for air, she asked if he ran home out of hunger. But Moon-hyuk could only weep, unable to stop the flood of decades of regret. Worried, she asked if something was wrong, but he just choked out his reply. He told her he just missed her so much, leaving her completely baffled. She chuckled, saying her grown grandson was acting like a little baby again. She smiled, remarking how handsome he was, and wondering when he grew so big. Moon-hyuk quickly wiped his face, urging her that they had to leave immediately. They needed to get to the hospital, right now. He warned she could collapse any minute, but she stubbornly brushed it off. She insisted she felt perfectly fine, driving Moon-hyuk into a state of panic. He begged her to move before she died, but she just laughed it off. Smiling, she joked she would only pass after seeing him married with children. She then went inside, telling her grandson to go wash up for dinner. Soon the two of them sat down together for a quiet meal. She noted that he usually disliked these simple Korean side dishes. But Moon-hyuk eagerly stuffed his face, saying he absolutely loved everything now. Watching him eat like a maniac, she teased him with a smile. Anyone watching would think he had been starving for a whole decade. She got up to fetch his favorite homemade corn juice from the kitchen. Left alone, Moon-hyuk wept silently as the emotions finally overwhelmed him. This simple meal was all he had ever truly wanted in life. He regretted spending his entire past life serving as a loyal dog for the Kaeun family. Suddenly, a heavy thud echoed from the adjacent room, instantly shattering his thoughts. He rushed in. His grandmother lay collapsed on the cold floor. Desperate and trembling, Moon-hyuk immediately scooped her up and rushed to the hospital. Soon she was resting in an emergency room, still completely unresponsive. The doctor delivered the grave news any later, and she would have passed away. They still needed to run more tests to uncover the underlying cause. His grandmother needed urgent surgery. Without it, she would just keep collapsing out of nowhere. Moon-hyuk was completely shocked by the massive hospital bill. Since his pockets were completely empty, he remembered. Just a short time ago, he easily dealt with hundreds of millions. Talk about a downgrade. His loyal friend stepped up and offered to cover the bill, explaining he got his father's pension from running an adult club. Moon-hyuk thanked him deeply and vowed to pay him back as soon as possible, but his friend just brushed him off, calling it family money, telling him not to worry. Should worry about her, not bills. Soon he met the doctor. The surgery cost 10 million won. Before his death, 10 million won was absolutely nothing to him, but now he only had a few cheap coins left. Standing at a payphone, Moon-hyuk quickly devised a plan. To pay, he dialed Pyeongchangdong directly. He demanded to speak with President Chin Tae-san because he had a message. The son of his only daughter, Chin Min-suk, wants to meet. To see his grandfather. On the rooftop, Moon-hyuk stood thinking. Looking out over Seoul, he realized how few tall skyscrapers existed back in 1990. The view was nostalgic. He was still amazed. Actually traveled back in time, he also felt anxious about being murdered again. In 30 years, his prime suspect was his uncle, Chin Soo-man, because he was the prime suspect. Still, the motive remained a total mystery since Moon-hyuk was still highly useful to them. He even suspected Chin Soo-han and Chin Jae-chwan, but it did not matter. This regression was his ultimate golden ticket to finally destroy the entire Chin family and crush Taesun capital. Suddenly, a loud delinquent lounging on the rooftop started shouting at Moon-hyuk. Guarded, Moon-hyuk wondered who this punk was as he demanded to know his name. Moon-hyuk asked why he cared, instantly sensing he was a low-level gangster. Offended, the thug barked at him for acting tough. Soon, they were arguing over who deserved more respect based on their age. Boldly, Moon-hyuk fired back that the bully should introduce himself first. Fed up, the young thug introduced himself as Park Dong-soo and asked if Moon-hyuk recognized him. Believe it or not, that name struck a major chord. Park Dong-soo was the future second in command of the Seong Gang, a legend destined to inherit the entire organization in 2 years. Yet, in 1990, he was a petty fugitive destined to die in some hotel. At age 29, the arrogant thug was insulted that Moon-hyuk did not know him. Moon-hyuk mockingly asked if he ran a local comic book store. Snapping, the bully repeated his name and demanded to know who he was talking to. When Moon-hyuk finally revealed his name, the punk smirked, calling it a killer name. Moon-hyuk rolled his eyes, silently dismissing him as a childish brat. But the thug kept talking, bringing up rumors. The good kid from room 405, who bobbied his grandmother and did everything she asked. Moon-hyuk calmly replied that taking care of his the troublemaker agreed, Seeing his uniform, the bully assumed Manhwa was a student at Dongsung Vocational High School, which was indeed correct. Manhwa straight up asked him if he was a gangster, but the tattooed thug denied it and wanted to know why he asked. After all, the guy's stab wound suggested. Otherwise, the bully barked back that it is normal for real men to get stabbed occasionally. But coddled kids like him would never understand that. Until they grow up, confused by his calm reaction, he asked if Manhwa was not afraid of him. But the kid coolly replied that he saw absolutely no reason to be afraid. Manhwa's fearless, backtalking attitude was seriously starting to annoy the punk. Annoyed, Manhwa asked if he was done running his mouth because he wanted to leave. The thug snorted yes, and on his way out, he called Manhwa by his name and warned him to take real good care of his grandmother, walking toward her room. Manhwa recalled that at this point in time, the Sassoon gang was not a national-scale syndicate yet, but they were still quite powerful. And he might find a use for that punk later, but the moment he entered the room, he stood face to face with a mysterious man wearing a sharp suit, his grandmother. Mentioned that this stranger was waiting for him. Slowly, the suited gentleman revealed himself as Director Ha, who was already familiar with Manhwa. The two stared at each other in silence until Manhwa suggested taking their conversation outside. They headed to a nearby coffee shop, where the man introduced himself as Hamyong-hyun. A loyal employee under Chairman T-san, Manhwa instantly recognized him as his grandfather's right-hand man, a person the boss trusted blindly. In his past life, Hamyong-hyun was the sole person who told him about his grandfather back at his grandmother's funeral. Now, the suited director said he wanted Manhwa to accompany him to Seoul, but Manhwa cut him off, asking why. The chairman did not show up himself, feeling the young man's intense gaze. Director Ha felt startled. He noticed the kid's posture was way too mature, appearing so natural that it was definitely not a bluff, so Mr. Ha replied that the chairman was an extremely busy person with zero time, but Manhwa revealed he was not referring to himself, but to his mother, Kim Mission, even though he knew she would never come. Manhwa figured the director would call him incredibly bold for even demanding her presence, knowing the chairman never once visited her final resting place after his own daughter died. Because of this, Manhwa declared that if the old man truly wanted a meeting, he must visit his daughter's grave first. He remembered how in his past life he quietly submitted, because he was just a helpless orphan back at his grandmother's funeral. Mr. Ha paid for everything and brought him to the chairman, who coldly told him he would be provided for as long as he followed every order. Back then, without his grandfather's money, he would have dropped out of school. But Manhwa knew history would not repeat itself because now he held all the cards. Standing up from the table, Manhwa calmly asked the director to deliver a message to the chairman. If he wants to see him, he must come in person. He bid farewell to Hamyong-hyun, wishing him a safe trip back and leaving. The director, shaken by the sheer, overwhelming presence the teenager radiated. In his initial report, the director labeled him a troublemaker. Now, he seriously doubted that. If the informant's reports were actually true, Kim Mision's son was definitely no ordinary kid. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, his grandmother received a massive shock. She couldn't believe the powerful chairman actually wanted Manhwa in Seoul. But Manhwa calmly explained that the old chairman would have to visit his mother's grave first. For 17 long years, the chairman had never once visited her. Terrified, his grandmother asked if he really understood what kind of ruthless man his grandfather was. But Manhwa assured her he knew exactly what he was doing in Seoul. The boy revealed he used the secret phone number she had been hiding. He looked her in the eyes and asked if she used that number to contact them. His grandmother pleaded with him to be respectful to his grandfather. But Manhwa scoffed, refusing to welcome a grandfather who had ignored him for 17 years. Deeply worried, she insisted that he couldn't just throw away family. But Manhwa reassured her, telling her to focus entirely on her own health. He comforted her, declaring that as long as he had her, he needed absolutely no one else. She was the only person who had ever truly loved him in his entire life. Remembering how she had passed away so suddenly before, he vowed to protect her happiness this time. He would do whatever it takes. Meanwhile, the powerful chairman got the message. He was confirming the boy's terms with his secretary, Mr. Ha. The secretary confirmed that Manhwa would only meet after the chairman visited his daughter's grave. To the chairman, this was absurd. Either the kid was incredibly brave or completely clueless. Either way, the kid caught his interest. Talk about a high-stakes move. He decided to visit Busausen to see what kind of boy he was. If the boy proved to be useful, the ruthless chairman planned to shape him into a family slave. Meanwhile, Moon-hyuk quietly walked back to his classroom, keeping his head down. His best friend immediately called him over, gesturing for him to come sit next to him. He asked about his grandmother, and Moon-hyuk replied that she was finally discharged. Realizing Moon-hyuk had been absent for days, his friend suggested they skip class to play pool. But Moon-hyuk flatly refused, saying he had to actually stay in school. He explained that he had missed way too many classes already and desperately needed to catch up. Moon-hyuk then focused entirely on the lesson, furiously writing notes in his book. He quietly told his stunned friend that they both needed to prepare themselves. This sudden academic focus absolutely terrified the room. Seeing him study so seriously, they wondered if he had lost his mind. His best friend literally started crying, yelling that the world was ending in just 9 years. Seeing the school rebel actually reading a book was proof of the apocalypse. Moon-hyuk just chuckled, recalling how studying was the absolute lowest priority in his past life. He only started trying after meeting his tyrannical grandfather. The grandfather pressured him, demanding absolutely flawless results. The ruthless old man set one single, absolutely impossible target. Moon-hyuk had to get into the prestigious Korea Law School. Though the loan shark saw zero chance of success, he used it as a test. It was his brutal way of testing whether his grandson was actually worth his time. Succeed and he would live in luxury, fail and he was cut off forever. He would have to say goodbye to the powerful Cheon family forever. So Moon-hyuk had studied himself to the bone, eventually earning his way in. Allowed him to work for his grandfather, but his greedy family treated him like a dog. They squeezed him dry like a blood servant. This time, Moon-hyuk was determined to do things differently. He would study hard to reach his goals. Meanwhile, some students slacked off outside, just loitering around in the hallways until their fun was cut short. A furious teacher appeared, clutching a heavy stick. He barked a quick scolding, stormed inside, and slammed his notebook onto the desk. He loudly ordered the entire room to snap to attention and bow before him. Every single student quickly bowed their heads in fear, but the teacher immediately targeted Moon-hyuk instead. He wanted Moon-hyuk right at the blackboard, ready to make an absolute example of him. He began badgering him, demanding to know how many school days he had missed. Did Moon-hyuk think this place was an amusement park where he could just drift in and out? Moon-hyuk tried to apologize quietly, explaining he had to care for his sick grandmother. Before he could even finish, a brutal slap struck his face. The teacher did not buy it. Calling him a lying punk, he claimed Moon-hyuk was probably out drinking somewhere. No way a troublemaker like him was actually looking after an elderly relative. The abuse kept coming, but Moon-hyuk remembered exactly who this teacher was from his past. Back in his first year, this guy treated students like absolute garbage. He loved power trips and hated being stared at, calling Moon-hyuk crazy for looking back. Moon-hyuk realized the guy was only in his early 30s, yet behaved like a total monster. He honestly could not understand why anyone would hold so much senseless cruelty inside. He remembered this jerk shamelessly demanding bribe money from his grandmother. Disgusted by the greed, Moon-hyuk had forced her to stop giving him those hard-earned bills. He refused to let her waste her painfully earned thousands of won on a parasite. And that is exactly why the petty scoundrel targeted Moon-hyuk every single chance he got. The abuse continued as he forced Moon-hyuk onto the floor, mocking him the entire time. He kept arguing that troublemakers like Moon-hyuk were always looking for some stupid fight to start. He sneered that kids like him only end up as street gangsters. Out of nowhere, the vice principal rushed into the room, making the teacher freeze. The vice principal stepped forward, asking if a student named Moon-hyuk was currently in the room. The abusive teacher went completely pale, look at him squirming under the pressure. Down in the schoolyard, a sleek black car and a sharp-dressed Mr. Ha were waiting. Mr. Ha opened the passenger door, politely asking Moon-hyuk to step inside the expensive vehicle. Students and staff crowded the windows, utterly stunned to see such a high-end imported car. Once Moon-hyuk climbed into the back seat, he came face-to-face with his powerful grandfather in person. Inside, Chairman Cheon Tyson sat waiting, talk about an intense family reunion. The old man asked if he was indeed Chan Masuk's son. Moon-hyuk silently held his gaze. They had finally met again. The last time Moon-hyuk saw him was before his death 20 years ago. He firmly confirmed his father was Kim Tae-soo and his mother was Chan Mi-suk. With an air of supreme authority, the old patriarch noted he had come in person, just as requested. Moon-hyuk did not flinch, instantly asking if his grandfather stopped by his mother's grave. The powerful old man gave a solemn nod, confirming that he had indeed stopped there. But Moon-hyuk was not finished. He pointed out his grandfather had never visited her once before. So it was only fitting he pay his respects first before they sat down to talk. He also calmly brought up his aging grandmother, whose health was failing rapidly. Because of her fragile state, he could not simply leave her side without making proper arrangements. He had no intention of abandoning her, and he certainly wasn't going to apologize, observing Moon-hyuk's calm posture. The old man wondered if this kid was actually just a child, since he was not even slightly intimidated in his massive presence. The chairman then asked if the young man really knew who he was dealing with. In his mind, Moon-hyuk knew this old man was a legend. In the loan shark world, starting out as a simple day laborer in the South, back then, there wasn't a single politician or business tycoon who hadn't borrowed cash from him. Even back in the 90s, he practically ruled the nation with trillions in liquid cash, yet Moon-hyuk calmly replied that he only knew of him a little, thinking he just ran a business. The grandfather laughed, saying he only ran a tiny lending office in Seoul, asking if his grandson even knew what that meant. But Moon-hyuk knew that calling it a small business was a massive understatement, getting straight to the point. The man asked what Moon-hyuk wanted. With total confidence, Moon-hyuk knew his ultimate goal was to completely crush the Kaon family and seize all their wealth. Moon-hyuk knew the ultimate revenge on the greedy Kaon brothers was taking their money. After Kaon Tyson died, they would inherit a massive fortune, and Moon-hyuk planned to claim every single cent for himself. But to do that, he desperately needed a secret war chest to fight them in the shadows, without the family noticing. So when the chairman asked why he was there, Moon-hyuk spoke plainly he needed a loan. Hearing this, the old man scoffed, thinking that everything always came down to money, finding the whole thing pathetic. He asked how much the boy wanted. Moon-hyuk explained that his grandmother, who had raised him for 17 years, urgently needed heart surgery costing 10 million won. He also added that he needed 1 million won a month until graduation for school and living expenses. The old man scoffed that he could easily pay that, questioning the boy's sanity for summoning him over such pathetic pocket change. Moon-hyuk clarified that he wasn't asking for a handout, but wanted a temporary loan. The old man found this absolutely hilarious, since the kid couldn't even pay back the interest, yet still refused to accept a free gift. The chairman explained that while a lender has plenty of cash to throw around, nobody gives out money for free. Leaning forward with a cold, heavy pressure, he demanded to know if Moon-hyuk had any real collateral or credit to back the debt. Without hesitating, Moon-hyuk replied that his only collateral was his own brain. Talk about a high-stakes gamble. Moon-hyuk then detailed his plan, promising that with this loan, he would secure admission to Korea University and use that achievement to settle the debt. The chairman stood completely speechless, since he had once begged his own family for this, but now the offer came straight from the kid himself. Kaon Tyson had always obsessed over elite academic success because his own childhood poverty cut his education short, and he forced that same heavy burden onto his own children. Naturally, having his grandson attend Korea University was the perfect way to cure his lifelong deep-rooted inferiority complex. Still, the old man doubted Moon-hyuk's actual ability, since his school grades were terrible, making him look like a complete bluff. Maybe he was just bluffing. Staring him down, the old man asked how confident he truly was and what he would do if he failed. Moon-hyuk quietly realized that despite his past life success, there were absolutely no guarantees this time. He knew he could do it again, but he had to hook his grandfather's interest. He had to spark his interest. So Moon-hyuk boldly declared that if he failed to get in, he would pay with his life. He asked if that would be enough, and hearing the insane offer, the old man eagerly agreed. Right after that, Moon-hyuk countered, saying if he actually passed, he wanted a major congratulatory gift. The old man was completely astonished, demanding to know if his grandson still wanted even more. Moon-hyuk calmly refused to say anything just yet. He would only reveal it after entering the university, but promised it would be something massive. Hearing this, the old man burst into a wild laugh, saying he could not wait. But the old man quickly added a terrifying warning to their high-stakes deal. If Moon-hyuk failed, he would belong to his grandfather, and do his absolute bidding. He would have to handle dark jobs that would make even literal demons shudder. But get this, Manhwa did not blink, calmly confirming the massive deal was done. With their deal struck, the old man sped away in his car. Manhwa just chuckled. He figured his gray-haired grandfather was just trying to terrify him like a little child. In fact, he loved that demons feared his grandfather. If he had to become a monster to tear the Khan family apart, so be it. He was ready. Meanwhile, stuck in traffic, the grandfather spoke to his driver. He remarked that Manhwa was one incredibly intriguing kid. The driver nodded in agreement. He admitted he was shocked by how different the boy was from their background reports. The old man sighed, noting he had dealt with every kind of person imaginable. From cheap scoundrels who refused to pay, to desperate folks who sold their own children. He had even dealt with lowlifes who brought armed thugs to threaten his life. After countless cold deals, he could read anyone just by looking at them. Their eyes, their posture, their tone of voice, it usually told him everything. Yet he admitted he could not get the slightest read on his own grandson. The driver smiled, suggesting the old boss had actually taken a real liking to Manhwa. Brushing the comment aside, the old man ordered him to drive straight to Dehang Hospital. Inside the ward, Manhwa was pleading with the head doctors to save his beloved grandmother. The primary surgeon reassured him, promising it was a highly routine and simple procedure. As the operation began and Manhwa stepped outside, a familiar local thug suddenly cornered him. The massive guy casually asked if he was eating well and attending his classes. He even offered a cigarette up on the roof, but Manhwa quickly shut him down. He pointed out that offering smokes to an active high school student was pretty wild. The thug laughed, wondering why a young kid was stressing so hard over school. Still, he promised that if Manhwa truly wanted to study, he would back off. Instead, the giant gangster handed him a simple piece of refreshing chewing gum. He told him to use it when he felt tired, then waved a casual goodbye. Watching him walk away, Manhwa recalled that this man, Park Dong-soo, was no joke. He was actually a notorious underworld figure, leading a gang of hundreds of loyal men. Talk about tragic, the guy was so amusing, but a brutal fate was coming for him. Once the Grand Crime War officially erupted, Park Dong-soo was doomed to a horrific death. Suddenly, Manhwa spotted armed, suspicious men creeping inside the hospital. According to the original timeline, Park Dong-soo was absolutely not supposed to die today. Realizing this, the young man understood that he had to step in. He saw his chance. It was time to bring this monster over to his side. Down at the reception lobby, some shady thugs demanded to know where Dong-soo's ward was. Terrified, the nurse asked what they wanted from him. But the thugs barked back. They said they were simply visiting him. Out of nowhere, Manhwa stepped in. He casually asked if they were looking for his older brother, claiming to be his family. He gladly offered to guide them. The thugs were left completely baffled by his confidence. Honestly, Manhwa was highly annoyed. These trashy scum were causing trouble right where his grandmother was undergoing major surgery. He had to lead them outside. As they followed him, the goons sensed a trap and demanded to know where they were going. Manhwa stopped. He casually asked if they came to murder Dong-soo. In response, one of the thugs whipped out a sharp switchblade and demanded to know who he was. Manhwa simply stretched, ready to fight. But then Dong-soo appeared. He asked if the men felt no shame pointing a knife at a student. One of the goons snapped and rushed forward to punch him, but shockingly, Dong-soo blocked that heavy hit with his forehead. While the guy screamed in agony from his broken hand, the tattooed beast swept his legs. He slammed a heavy punch down, bouncing him hard off the concrete. The remaining thugs tensed up as the giant ripped off his shirt. Another lunged with a blade, but Dong-soo quickly shut him down. With heavy hits, before the body could even hit the ground, Dong-soo threw him into another goon with perfect aim. Then he whipped his shoe right at his face, finishing them off with a kick. The remaining thug spotted the glass windows next to him and tried to slam Dong-soo through them. That desperate move failed miserably. Dong-soo punched right through the window, smashing the goon and sending him flying. Brutal counter. Afterward, the two fighters stared at each other in complete silence. A few moments later, inside the hospital, Dong-soo laughed, saying it felt great to let loose. After fighting those guys over some local territory, he knew they were hunting him down and was already keeping an eye on them. But Manhwa made the first move and led them out. The giant admitted the young kid had serious guts since he did not flinch with a knife pointed at him. The Young lead calmly replied he only did it because he knew Dong-soo would show up and because he saw Dong-soo's guys watching the building. He implied that even without his intervention, the final result would be the same. Since Dong-soo crushed them all, he felt like he owed the young man. He offered to grant him any wish, from big money to women. Manhwa realized Dong-soo was the perfect first tool to build his empire. He had to own him. Manhwa told the tattooed boss to take his closest men and go into hiding for 3 months. The boss got instantly annoyed, snapping that the kid was talking complete nonsense and asking why he should hide, but then Manhwa revealed the shocking truth. The president was going to declare a war on crime, arresting everyone. This left Dong-soo in utter shock. In October of 1990, the president issued a special decree to silence public outrage over government corruption. Sure, there had already been a crackdown on the 5 major crimes the year before. But this new war on crime was different, a massive, large-scale sweep. Every gang wiped out, Manhwa continued telling him to keep his location completely secret from other syndicates, warning him to be extremely careful of his own boss, Lee Se-young. Manhwa ended the call by telling him this was his sole wish. The decision was now in Park Dong-soo's hands. If the gangster survived, he would prove useful later. 1 month passed, and Manhwa's prediction came true. The television news announced that the Constitution granted the president absolute power to clean up the streets. Every single newspaper reported that police and prosecutors were fully mobilized, raiding every gang in Busausen. Park Dong-soo heard all about the massive crackdowns from his men, but he already knew. He ordered his guys to stay put and lay low. No causing trouble for any reason. Reading the headlines, the hardened gangster was insane, right? Everything played out exactly as the kid said it would. He remembered laughing it off back then, thinking the young man was talking total nonsense. He joked that they might as well wish for reunification. In a flashback, Manhwa smiled and said that wish would only come true in Germany, not for them. Now the terrified gangster shivered, wondering who this mysterious teenager really was. Who on earth was Manhwa? Meanwhile, at home, Manhwa was comforting his grandmother, telling her that his grandfather had sorted everything out so she could finally stop worrying. He explained that he had inherited a nice apartment and plenty of cash from the grandfather who had been missing for 17 years. He insisted that she never had to work another day in her life. She could barely believe it. But Manhwa insisted she had worked far too hard, raising him completely alone, and deserved so much more, promising her that she would live comfortably from now on, asking her to focus only on her own health. Suddenly, the door burst open. Manhwa's friends walked in, loudly announcing they had bought ribs to celebrate. They warmly congratulated his grandmother on being discharged from the hospital. The room filled with pure, chaotic, happy energy as they prepared to grill the meat and celebrate. Cut to a while later at school. Boys complained that the beautiful weather was totally wasted because of exam day. They started bickering back and forth about who did better on the tests. One of them proudly bragging about making it into the top 500. While the other sat below rank 520, they turned and asked Manhwa. And he modestly replied that he only improved a bit and needed to study harder. Secretly, he felt hitting the books after all this time was tough, but worth it. He had actually done quite well. Walking toward the classroom, a student rushed up to break some insane news. Manhwa had scored first place in the entire school. His friends stood there with their jaws on the floor. The classmate explained he had overheard the teachers talking about it in their lounge just this morning. Right on cue, another student yelled out that Manhwa was summoned to the office. Everyone assumed he was getting a special prize and hyped him up. Inside the office, the teacher coldly asked if he knew why he was there. Manhwa stood silent, offering zero reaction, which only pissed the teacher off. Suddenly, a sharp slap rang out across his face. Outside, his friends watching anxiously through the window, students see the teacher demand why he is even there. Manhwa calmly replies that he has no idea. Boom, another heavy slap. The furious teacher immediately starts grilling him. What did he do? He demands answers, accusing him of blatant cheating. It makes zero sense that last semester's worst student suddenly took first place, but Manhwa knows. He knows the real motive here. Days ago, this same teacher saw him getting into his grandfather's luxury car. The greedy man immediately cornered him, claiming that as Manhwa's elementary tutor, he deserved respect. Meaning he wanted money, this shameless, self-serving attitude Disgusts Moon-hyuk, this man is the absolute worst kind of trash. Absolute garbage. Back then, Moon-hyuk simply told the greedy parasite that if he wanted to see his grandfather, he could travel to Seoul. The teacher kept insisting, but Moon-hyuk just cut him off right there. He had an exam to catch and walked away, leaving the man absolutely furious. Now back in the present, the spiteful teacher is out for blood. He demands to know if Moon-hyuk had helped cheating, but Moon-hyuk denies it. Frustrated, the teacher brings up his past suspensions, calling him a hopeless troublemaker who never learns his lesson. He even sneers, asking if he learned this from his grandmother. That is it, mentioning his grandmother is crossing the line. Irritated by Moon-hyuk's cold glare, the teacher threatens to gouge his eyes. Furious, Moon-hyuk demands an apology. Leave my family out of this. Instead, the teacher slaps him again, calling him a crazy kid. Then the unthinkable happens. The teacher starts ripping up all of Moon-hyuk's exam papers, shouting that grading them is pointless. He voids the tests, giving him a 0 for cheating, and suspends him indefinitely. He even snaps that he wishes he could expel him. But Moon-hyuk does not flinch. Instead, he calmly proposes a bet. He will retake every exam right now, right in front of everyone. If his score drops even a bit, he will leave quietly. But if he matches his perfect score, the teacher must resign. Absolute shock fills the room. The teacher goes completely wild with rage, lunging with a heavy wooden pointer, but Moon-hyuk grabs it midair, asking coldly if he is scared of his own accusations. Now bring the tests. A tense silence follows. Soon, the entire room is holding its breath. Moon-hyuk breezily completes paper after paper, writing with absolute, effortless speed. As the grading teacher reviews each sheet, his face turns pale. It is a perfect score. Every single subject is absolutely flawless. Now he is on the English test, the very last subject. To tighten the screws, Moon-hyuk looks up and delivers a warning. This is the final question. Get it right and the teacher is finished. He will have to pack his bags and leave this school forever. And if he dares to break his promise, there will be no mercy shown. The crowd watches in absolute dread. In this silence, Moon-hyuk makes one final unexpected offer: apologize right now or face total ruin. He stops answering the questions altogether, and the teacher absolutely hates his defiant tone. But right then, the school principal steps in and tells them both to stop. He declares that enough is enough, announcing that Moon-hyuk has already proven his innocence, ordering the teacher to apologize to him immediately. He adds that the teacher should be praising him for those incredible grades. Under everyone's watchful eyes, the teacher mumbles an apology, admitting he got it wrong. But the man cannot even look him in the eye. Now, fully vindicated, Moon-hyuk slams his pen onto the desk, coldly announcing he is heading back to class. As he walks away, the students watching from the hallway start to cheer. They celebrate his victory. Later, as everyone anxiously crowds around the scoreboard, the official announcement confirms that Moon-hyuk secured first place in the entire exam. His friends laugh about how terrified the teacher looked, but they still cannot believe he actually took the top spot. They wonder if he will really attend Korea University. Moon-hyuk seriously warns Mongu to start studying hard and promises to tutor him while telling Hyunsung to get back to training. In judo, Moon-hyuk remembers that Mongu actually had decent grades in his past life, but ended up choosing a vocational school just to follow his true passion. Meanwhile, Hyunsung was a highly promising judo athlete who chose a school with no sports team just so he would not have to leave his friends. However, his friends do not seem very thrilled about these sudden plans. One is thinking of factory work while young, and the other is considering taking over his father's business. Noticing their hesitation, Moon-hyuk steps up and tells them seriously that he has major plans in Seoul soon. Keeping things realistic, he explains that handling all of this alone is nearly impossible, which is why he truly needs their help by his side. Hearing this, his friends make up their minds and agree to study hard so they can go to Seoul together. Moon-hyuk realizes revenge is not guaranteed. Simply by knowing what comes next, he needs loyal allies who will never betray him, and those trustworthy comrades are none other than his closest friends. As time passes, Moon-hyuk stays hyper-focused on his studies, easily securing first place. In the finals, while Mongu's grades are not perfect, they are definitely improving. While Hyunsung gets back on the judo mat, all the pieces are finally falling into place. Soon, on a freezing, snowy day, Moon-hyuk stands right in front of the massive, impenetrable estate belonging to the Cheon family. Alongside Hanam-dong, Pyeongdu-cheong is one of the wealthiest areas in the country, and that is where the Cheon family's massive headquarters is located. This estate is considered extremely valuable for its incredible ability to generate cash. Through the rise of the Third Republic via military coup, and then the Fourth Republic's subsequent coup, this mighty money-lender's fortress successfully protected his vast wealth from every single threat. At that moment, Moon-hyuk is quietly having dinner with his grandfather inside the main residence. He reflects that this dinner never actually happened during his original past life, as he only met Cheon Tyson after getting into Korea University. This means his grandfather's opinion of him has completely shifted. In that chilly, mysterious room, their heavy silence speaks louder than any words. He mentioned hearing that his grandson actually took first place in the school rankings. Not just once but twice, the old man shrugged it off, downplaying the school's overall level. He claimed it was no big deal, but deep down, he knew his grandson was not just bragging. In truth, the loan shark was secretly thrilled by Moon-hyuk's sharp mind. Since the kid kept his word, the old man wanted to hand over a proper reward. Asking what the boy wanted, Moon-hyuk stood firm on his earlier stance. He would only name his price once he officially got accepted into Korea University. The grandfather insisted, wanting to give him a gift right at that moment. Moon-hyuk realized his grandfather was actually trying to be nice, so he adapted quickly. Seeing the kindness, he figured he might as well ask for a little allowance. A wild gamble, he boldly asks for company shares instead. The grandfather blinked in surprise, asking if the kid even understood the stock market. Moon-hyuk admitted he was clueless, playing up his innocent, childish charm. He humbly asked for guidance, wondering which companies would be safe to invest in. Stocks would definitely look like a cute, naive request in his eyes. A harmless hobby for a smart kid, or so the old man would think. Chuckling, the grandfather turned to his director and asked about their stake in Dahyun Corporation. Turns out they held a solid 4% share in the massive conglomerate. Without hesitation, the old man ordered that entire share to be handed to Moon-hyuk. He even told them to cover all the transfer taxes. Moon-hyuk was absolutely stunned. Getting shares in Dahyun was mind-blowing, considering its status as the nation's top conglomerate. It stood completely unchallenged at the very top. But later, internal family wars tore it completely apart. Those shares represented serious power in the long run, far more valuable than plain cash. Even the ultra-rich struggled to get their hands on a single Dahyun stock. Moon-hyuk bowed deeply, thanking him. He had only expected some basic spending money. Total jackpot, but wait, everything shifts as the door swings open. The loan shark's sons arrived, instantly filling the room with a dark, heavy pressure. Leading the pack were Suman and Suhan, men who carried themselves with absolute authority. Suman sneered, asking if Moon-hyuk was Mysic's son. Finally, he was face to face with them. These were the exact monsters who had ordered his execution in his past life. Ordered to greet his uncles, Moon-hyuk knew he must keep a low profile. He smiled politely, introducing himself with absolute perfect manners. His uncles smirked, mentioning they heard he was raised in poverty by his grandmother. Suman stepped closer, offering a fake, slimy show of affection. He told Moon-hyuk to ask if he ever needed anything, acting like a caring uncle. Soon the topic shifted. One of the sons turned to the sister-in-law with a smirk. He asked if her Samsung group was actually surviving the current financial crisis. She scoffed, insisting that everything was fine and the rumors were totally baseless. Confidently, she promised that her powerful father-in-law would never let them fail. The old grandfather nodded, knowing that man was a completely ruthless beast. He agreed that the tycoon never shed blood or tears for anyone. Remind your father-in-law, he told his daughter, that we are family now. Partners bound by blood, after all. Then the old man shifted his focus. He turned his cold gaze toward his other son, demanding an update on Mr. Kim. His father-in-law was doing great, deeply involved in politics. Everything was fine. Once again, the grandfather told them that if they ran into trouble, they should come to him to prevent any major financial losses. He refused to get mixed up in shady, illegal deals. Soon after, the family head asked if any of his sons had secretly sent money to President Lee Hak-soo. He snapped that this was no way to use cash. People had to earn it. They had to crawl and beg before getting a single dime. A son started sweating. He asked if his father knew who President Lee Haksu was, terrified of a broken promise. Another son trembled, claiming that if their father pulled a stunt like that, the powerful Kaeon group would destroy them. Thick, suffocating tension filled the room. The patriarch flew into a wild rage as the stormy sky outside turned pitch black. Meanwhile, Moon-hyuk stepped inside his late mother's old room, looking around the quiet space. Scanning the dusty bookshelves, he realized everything was exactly like his past life. He gently picked up an old book and began turning the yellowed pages. Inside lay a hidden photo of his stern grandfather standing right beside his mother. This was the only image of her he had ever found in his entire previous life. The old man had left no other memories behind. It was almost as if he wanted the entire world to completely forget about Moon-hyuk's mother. Then, suddenly, the heavy bedroom door swung open while he was still holding the old photo. Jiwon stood there, smirk on his face, asking if he was Mizuki's kid. Moon-hyuk glared back, instantly recognizing the bastard who likely ordered his past murder. Jiwon had viewed him as a minor roadblock on his path to the inheritance. Jiwon chuckled, noting that the country boy had finally made it from Busausen. He asked how he liked the big city, mocking his ability to adjust. Moon-hyuk cut through the noise, flatly asking who the hell he even was. Jiwon scoffed at his lack of respect, demanding to know where his manners were. Moon-hyuk silently chuckled. This guy was just as incredibly petty as before. He was still a pathetic child, proving some things never change, even after death. Thoroughly annoyed, Moon-hyuk calmly slid the book back and stepped right up to Jiwon. His cold eyes locked onto him, stating that age meant nothing without mutual respect. Talking down to someone on day one did not earn you any respect. Jiwon stood frozen in absolute disbelief. He never expected anyone to talk back. It was clearly his very first time dealing with real, unyielding hostility. And honestly, it made sense. His father was the eldest son of the legendary Kingpin. His mother was the eldest daughter of the powerhouse Samsung Group. No sane person would ever dare offend him, but here is the thing. Jiwon sneered, asking how a worthless nobody dared to show such insane arrogance. He sneered that this high-class mansion was no place for trash like him. Then came the bribe, 100 million won, to pack his bags and vanish. Moon-hyuk held back a smirk, remembering this exact same offer from his past life. Back then he had stuttered like a coward, but things were different now. He mockingly thanked his dear brother for tossing him such pathetic little crumbs. As Jiwon blinked in pure confusion, Moon-hyuk broke down the math for him. That tiny pocket change could barely buy a decent plate of raw fish. Furiously, Jiwon spat back that now he understood why Moon-hyuk was an orphan. Furious about the grandmother who raised him, Moon-hyuk punched the door. Directly where the young man was standing, shouting and asking if he actually wanted to get up by some uneducated country bumpkin who had no parents to raise him. Scared, the coward asked if Moon-hyuk really thought he would get away. Doing this to the eldest son of the prominent Cheon family, he threatened to tell their grandfather everything, but Moon-hyuk cut him off in an instant, telling him to shut his mouth. Moon-hyuk then revealed he knew all about how Jiwon, the pampered grandson of Samsung Group, loved illegal drugs and smuggling, a massive scandal that would surely make the news. Completely rattled, the young man demanded to know what he was talking about, but Moon-hyuk continued, stating that he would gladly expose the other spoiled children in their family. The same ones who threw a wild hotel party that ended with a girl in the hospital. Jiwon could not comprehend how he knew any of this. Moon-hyuk then said that on top of everything, he was still just a child who was brave enough to go downstairs and tell their grandfather everything. Moon-hyuk knew about all the dark incidents Jiwon had caused in his previous life, fully aware that his future crimes would be even worse. Moon-hyuk confidently stated that if Jiwon wanted to be treated like an older brother, he should start acting like one. This left Jiwon completely shocked, ready to go to bed. Moon-hyuk bluntly told his brother to leave because he was extremely exhausted and wanted to rest. Still shaking, Jiwon warned him never to discuss this with anyone, threatening that if he opened his mouth, one of them would die. He asked if Moon-hyuk understood what he was saying. With a cold grin, Moon-hyuk asked if that was supposed to be a request or a threat. Terrified, his brother stammered it was just a request. Sick of talking, Moon-hyuk agreed to stay silent and promised to keep his mouth shut, ordering him to leave his room immediately. Jiwon practically ran out of there, panic slamming the door. Left alone, Moon-hyuk wondered if Jiwon was the one who murdered him in his past life. Can you believe he actually lost to someone This pathetic, the quiet night passed, and the next day, while walking leisurely through the mansion, he crossed paths with his grandfather, who asked if he was departing. Moon-hyuk nodded, bowing respectfully to bid farewell. Keeping his head lowered, he promised he would definitely return to visit more often. His grandfather dismissed him silently, and Moon-hyuk finally stepped outside. Right there on the street, he received 100 million won directly from the director, who explained it was actually a special gift from the chairman, who felt that just giving him the Hyun shares was not nearly enough. He also mentioned that the device password was Moon-hyuk's mother's birthday. Moon-hyuk wondered if this old man, who was always so meticulous with his private things, was truly the exact same person, and asked the director to thank him. However, the director insisted that Moon-hyuk should call him directly, since he was certain his grandfather was waiting. Time flew by rapidly, and Moon-hyuk was already in his second year of high school, transferring over to a new classroom. Meanwhile, his close friend Mongsu kept working hard at studying, while the other was dedicated to training at the judo club. They all pushed themselves to keep their solemn promise of attending a prestigious university in Seoul. One day, while sitting in his classroom, Moon-hyuk suddenly sensed someone approaching. Seconds later, the teacher stepped into the room to introduce a new transfer student from Seoul. This highly mysterious young man introduced himself as Hong Jinpyo, and Moon-hyuk immediately realized in that instant that this particular guy was an absolute, untamed beast. Inside a busy restaurant, the new kid was eating and smoking alongside some local students. He casually asked who the real boss of their school was. The guys explained there wasn't a boss, but the closest thing to one was Moon-hyuk. The newcomer wanted details, so they spilled everything they knew. Moon-hyuk was easily the strongest second year around, and they remembered a crazy story. Back then, some seniors went to call the most promising freshmen out. They wanted to talk, but when they arrived at Moon-hyuk's desk, they found him asleep. He was fast asleep, completely ignoring every single word they yelled. Annoyed by this, one bold senior smacked Moon-hyuk hard on the head to wake him. Still half asleep, he stood up and immediately read the room. Giving the senior a terrifying glare, Moon-hyuk suddenly slammed him straight into the floor. It happened in a flash. Before anyone could react, he cleared the entire room. He took out every last one of them, then calmly walked back to his desk. He announced he was going back to sleep, warning them never to disturb him again. The guys finished their story, noting that no senior ever dared cross him after that. Lately, though, they mentioned that Moon-hyuk was solely focused on hitting the books. The new kid scoffed at this, thinking studying was a pathetic waste of talent. He found it arrogant, instantly declaring his plans to mess with the top dog. The others warned him to stop. Fighting Moon-hyuk was pure suicide. But the newcomer just shrugged it off, completely unfazed by their warnings. He smirked, claiming raw fighting power does not guarantee a win in the end. He bragged that people followed him because of his father, who happened to be the chief prosecutor. Then he asked about Moon-hyuk's family background, and the students gave him the facts. The strongest guy had no parents and lived alone with his grandmother. Hearing this, the transfer kid smirked. Back at school, Moon-hyuk was chatting. He was chatting with his close friend Mongsu about their old classmate, Hyun-sung. Hyun-sung had rejoined the sports club, determined to make it into a physical education college. Mongsu asked if he heard about Jinpyo, the annoying new transfer student. He was a troublemaker from Seoul, and Moon-hyuk immediately recognized his name. He was the chief prosecutor's son, ruling schools with his family's elite power. With the older seniors away on a trip, things were getting pretty bad. Jinpyo was forming a crew and turning the school into his personal playground. Just then, Jinpyo strolled right past them, causing both sides to freeze. They locked eyes. With a serious tone, Moon-hyuk warned Mongsu to stay away. "Avoid those guys entirely." Mongsu laughed, claiming his friend was worrying over nothing. But Moon-hyuk insisted. Seeing his friend, a painful memory rushed back. He remembered when Mongsu got his leg badly shattered during a brutal fight. The injury was so severe that Mongsu could no longer walk properly. Rage bubbled inside. It was all because of that new transfer student. Back then, he had swallowed his anger to focus on his studies, a deep regret. But he carried that guilt daily. Now, he was determined never to back down again. He would protect what was precious. Later, inside the classroom, Jinpyo cornered Mongsu. The goons approached Mongsu's desk. The arrogant newcomer asked if he was close. He wanted to know if Moon-hyuk was really the legendary fighter everyone claimed. Mongsu quickly replied that Moon-hyuk only cared about studying and nothing else. Jinpyo is caught off guard. He asks if Mongsu really does not care about him taking over. At school, Mongsu simply nods, telling him he can do whatever he wants, but Jinpyo admits that Manhwa just seriously gets under his skin. This makes Mongsu wonder why he keeps picking fights with a guy who only wants to study. Jinpyo lays it bare. He absolutely hates seeing anyone act like some arrogant jerk is better than him. Pointing out his own lackeys as proof, they actually look more terrified of Manhwa than their own boss. Mongsu warns him to leave the kid alone, but one trashy goon hates that tone and snaps back, calling him a complete loser. But Jinpyo holds him back. He smiles, reminding everyone he always gets his way. Confused by his absolute madness, Mongsu begins to speak, asking if he is crazy. But a thug instantly grabs him, smashing his face straight into the hard desk. Jinpyo sighs, telling him this is just the price of being close to Manhwa, so he should not take it too personally before letting him go. Meanwhile, as Manhwa is quietly focusing on his schoolwork, a panicked classmate runs right up to him. He gasps out that Mongsu was kidnapped by Jinpyo, who left a direct threat. Telling Manhwa to come straight to the school band room, Manhwa immediately dashes out to rescue his friend, thinking that despite his absolute best efforts to avoid drama, history is repeating itself. On his way, he runs into his athletic friend Hyung-sung, who demands answers. He wants to know why the hell Jinpyo dragged Mongsu away. Manhwa tries calming him down, promising he will handle this alone, but Hyung-sung refuses to stay back. While some cheap thug hurts their closest friend, Manhwa knows the stakes are high. After all his training, Mongsu is finally showing real promise at Busosun. Getting caught up in brutal school fights could easily ruin his bright future. Manhwa desperately warns Hyung-sung to stay out of this, reminding him of his athletic dreams. Hyung-sung immediately fires back. He does not care about sports or college. If anything bad happens to their friend, he will end the culprit himself. Running completely out of patience, Manhwa has to raise his voice and explain. He has massive plans for their future, and he needs Hyung-sung safe. Gearing up for war, Manhwa grabs a sturdy wooden broom handle and tells Hyung-sung to block the door, letting absolutely nobody inside, not even teachers. Shocked by the raw determination, his friend asks if he is truly going alone. Manhwa cold smiles, asking if he has already forgotten that he is Kim Manhwa. Stepping into the room, Manhwa is met by a whole crowd of eager fighters. Circling Mongsu with Jinpyo in the middle, here comes the absolute showdown. Jinpyo chuckles, noting the rumors were true about Manhwa showing up for his friends. He sneers, mockingly adding that if Manhwa had not shown up, he would have snapped Mongsu's ankle like a twig. Bleeding and in shock, Mongsu asks what he is doing there. Manhwa ignores the question, telling Jinpyo to face him directly instead of dragging innocent people into their mess, but the arrogant bully only laughs, mockingly claiming he went through all this effort simply because it is fun. Fury boiling over, Manhwa demands that he release his friend this very instant and promises to personally give him a much more exciting playtime. Jinpyo mocks the intense threat, sarcastically asking if they are currently filming some dramatic movie about the legendary loyalty of the Busosun boys. Jinpyo is about to realize that this is definitely not a movie. He ordered his goons to strike, but they hesitated, looking terrified. Losing his patience, he screamed, asking if they knew his father. Jinpyo threatened them, one finger lifted, and they would all rot in prison forever. With that final threat, the charge finally began. The first punk rushing Manhwa took a direct smash to the windpipe. It staggered him instantly. Next, two more delinquents lunged at him. But he blocked them easily, sending one delinquent flying with a kick. A cheap shot caught him from behind, but he spun around fast. Swinging his broom handle, he smashed the attacker right across the face. The others backed away in terror. Jinpyo screamed to grab him. Blood splattered everywhere. The brutal brawl kept dragging on and on. Finally, Manhwa stood alone, every single thug laid completely broken. Jinpyo panicked. He grabbed a box cutter, aiming it at Mongsu. Take another step, and I will slice his neck open. But Manhwa did not blink. Moving like lightning, he closed the gap. A massive punch hit Jinpyo's jaw, sending him crashing hard down. Even on the ground, the arrogant brat kept screaming his threats. My father is the chief prosecutor. He will ruin your life. But Manhwa did not care about some high-ranking father or prison. My fists are right here. The law is too far away. Now watch, he unloads a brutal barrage of punches for kidnapping Mongsu. He also ruined his study time. Next, Manhwa grabbed his ankle. This was direct payback for what Jimpyo threatened to do earlier. The bully begged for mercy, but Mayak completely snapped and struck. He kept his promise. Soon, Mayak ended up locked inside a cell. Suddenly, Mongu's uncle arrived. Being a cop, he explained the situation. Ryang-soo told him everything about the rescue and confirmed he was safe. Still, he delivered a grim warning about the massive trouble ahead. Mayak had beaten up the wrong person, a prosecutor's spoiled son. Because of that influence, even a cop could do absolutely nothing. Seeing the situation, Mayak simply asked for one quick phone call. The officer agreed. Later that night, a furious man marched inside. He demanded to see Mayak. Once they met, his identity was clear. He was the powerful chief prosecutor, demanding to know his name. Unfazed, Mayak calmly explained that it happened during an unfair brawl. He had to defend himself alone against more than 10 thugs. Why was he the only arrest? The prosecutor did not care. The furious father instantly ordered his men to take Mayak away. They wanted an immediate interrogation, but the local police officers refused. They pointed out that the boy was still a legal minor. Annoyed, the prosecutor snapped that he would handle the kid himself. He was absolutely certain he knew how to break punks like Mayak. Inside the private room, he mocked Mayak for becoming famous today. He revealed that the school teacher painted him as a violent delinquent. A dangerous thug. Hearing this, Mayak just stood silent. Pure hatred for his corrupt teacher. Still, he tried to explain his actions. He never wanted to hurt anyone, he was only defending himself. But the furious prosecutor refused to accept it, demanding once more to know why Mayak had done such a thing. The young man calmly explained that his classmate had been dragged away by Jinpyo and that the gang ambushed him when he searched for his friend, leaving him no choice but to strike back. Unsatisfied with that answer, the corrupt prosecutor unbuckled his leather belt, saying words alone would not suffice. To teach Mayak a real lesson, he ordered his 2 guards to grab the boy. With Mayak pinned down, the abusive investigator began to strike him over and over, demanding to know why he did it. Yet Mayak stood strong, repeating that it was only self-defense. The prosecutor sneered, noting that the punk had some fire in him, but his next punch would put it out. He then hit Mayak again with zero mercy, while his henchmen watched in absolute distress. After the beating, both men were exhausted, and Mayak's face was completely battered. Even so, the relentless prosecutor demanded once more to know why he did it. With swollen lips, Mayak whispered again that it was only self-defense. The prosecutor warned him that resisting would only make the pain worse, and decided to ask him one final question. He accused Mayak of attacking his son with a weapon first, but the young man immediately corrected him, stating that Jinpyo was the one holding the knife. Seething with pure rage, the prosecutor claimed this reminded him of the past and ordered them to bind Mayak. His guards hesitated but quickly obeyed under pressure. Before long, they had tied Mayak to a chair, forcing his hands flat on the table. The investigator sneered that the boy had dug his own grave, so he should prepare for the end. In a sickening display of cruelty, he got ready to drive a sharp pin under Mayak's fingernails, but right then, Mayak burst into a wild, mocking laugh, utterly shocking the corrupt investigator. Talk about an absolute power move. He assumed the boy had completely lost his mind to fear, but Mayak replied that Jinpyo and his father were exactly the same. Like father, like son, he sneered, mocking how both of them loved showing off their pathetic little toys. The prosecutor's blood boiled, and he barked at his men to hold the boy still so he could break him. Suddenly, the door swung open as a frantic guard rushed inside. Still furious, Jinpyo's father demanded to know who dared interrupt them, but right behind the guard, a tall, imposing man stepped into the room. It was Chief Prosecutor Yun Chang-ho of the Busan district. The corrupt investigator instantly froze, utterly baffled by the chief's sudden arrival. Without a single word, Yun Chang-ho delivered a deafening slap to his face, asking what on earth he was doing with a minor. He growled that if the idiot wanted to ruin his own life, he should do it without dragging everyone else down. Stunned and clutching his cheek, Jinpyo's father tried to protest, begging to know what he did wrong, but the tall companion beside the chief stepped forward, coldly asking if he even knew who this boy's grandfather was. If he had known, he never would have done this. Then, the truth drops. The grandfather is Chairman Cheon of Panong Changdong. Connecting the dots, he realizes exactly who he is dealing with, the chief prosecutor. confirms it, pointing right at Moon-hyuk and declaring that this student is the billionaire grandson. Anxiously, the cowardly prosecutor stares at Moon-hyuk's face, seeing his mocking smirk, and finally understands the sheer gravity of the situation, becoming completely terrified. After all that chaotic drama, Moon-hyuk finds himself at his grandfather's house, sitting down for a very serious conversation. The old man asks how all this trouble started, and Moon-hyuk explains he needed his help because a corrupt prosecutor was running a completely rigged investigation and abusing his authority. His grandfather gravely asks if Moon-hyuk could have just walked away from the conflict. He fires back that he could never tolerate them targeting his friends, so he crushed them entirely, making absolutely sure they never return. He emphasizes that he refuses to let those he cares about suffer for his sake. Protecting his loved ones is his sole priority, and that is his way of living. His grandfather silently watches him, lost in deep thought. Without saying a single word, Moon-hyuk speaks up again, admitting his immense debt to the chairman, but swears he will do anything to protect his people. Still scowling, the old man asks what he would have done without his grandfather's help, warning that his journey could have ended right there. Moon-hyuk calmly responds that, in that case, their family bond would end. This response completely stuns the old man, but Moon-hyuk keeps a stern, cold face. If his own family abandoned him in his time of need, he would no longer consider himself part of this household. Hearing this, the old man suddenly bursts out laughing. He grins, telling Moon-hyuk that he is right. A real man should never back down and must use every tool available. Moon-hyuk realizes this harsh, uncompromising philosophy is exactly how the chairman lived in his past life. The old man continues sharing his wisdom. He teaches Moon-hyuk that in an unavoidable conflict, you must crush everyone so they never return. A half-hearted victory only gives them an excuse to strike back later. He notes that if Moon-hyuk truly wants to win over an ally, he must fully shield them. Hearing this, he calls Director Ha. He demands an immediate update on how things are going down in Busan. Director Ha reports that Prosecutor Hong is now facing a severe internal investigation for torture and manipulation, while the terrified prosecutor Yun is currently waiting for the chairman's final judgment. Next, the old man asks about the situation back at school. The director reveals that the prosecutor's son was expelled and all his little cronies have fled. He adds that Moon-hyuk's abusive schoolteacher was also kicked out. Hearing all these reports, the chairman asks if his grandson is satisfied now, but Moon-hyuk has one more favor to request. He wants to personally handle the fate of Prosecutor Yun, which leaves the old man quite puzzled. Sometime later, Director Ha and Prosecutor Yun meet inside a quiet restaurant. The director casually asks what Yun plans to do about Prosecutor Hong. Still frightened, he confirmed that Hong was under investigation and would be punished to set a clear example. The director then stressed that young Master Moon-hyuk's name should never come up. After that, he mentioned that another important person wanted to speak with him. Opening the door to the office, he revealed Moon-hyuk waiting right there inside. The two sat in heavy silence, staring at each other until the prosecutor finally broke. He immediately apologized, stammering that everything was entirely his fault and would never happen again. Showing absolutely no emotion, Moon-hyuk quietly listened to the desperate apology. He told him to speak casually, saying he understood the prosecutor's limitations. Prosecutor Yun, still worried that the powerful grandfather held a deep grudge against him. But Moon-hyuk revealed he was actually the one who requested this meeting. He knew the prosecutor was caught in the middle and offered his own apology. This left the prosecutor flustered, insisting that Moon-hyuk did not need to apologize. He blamed himself for not managing his own subordinates properly from the start. Moon-hyuk promised to pass this sincere apology along to his grandfather. Smoothly changing the subject, Moon-hyuk asked if he could get a favor in return. He wanted a guaranteed favor for a future date, with absolutely no strings attached. He explained it would not hurt him, but would require his specific authority. Still feeling incredibly nervous, Prosecutor Yun immediately agreed to the proposal. He promised he would be glad to assist him whenever that day came. Satisfied, Moon-hyuk said he would deliver the message and told him to drop the case. He assured the prosecutor he no longer had to take responsibility for it. Finally breathing a sigh of relief, the prosecutor thanked him, feeling incredibly light. Moon-hyuk smiled, wishing they could meet again under much better circumstances. He also congratulated him on his upcoming promotion to Seoul before standing up. He mentioned he had to head back to class since he missed too many days. The prosecutor had completely forgotten that this terrifyingly mature kid was just a student. As Moon-hyuk walked out, the prosecutor marveled at how incredibly skilled he was. Talk about a legendary power move from a kid who is still just a student. After those wild events, his school life actually went back to normal. He focused entirely on his studies, while his friends worked hard alongside him. Days turned into months, filled with massive global events from wars to the Olympics. Major political elections came and went as the seasons slowly changed. Soon, the dreaded university entrance exams finally arrived for them. Over at the mansion, Director Ha rushed to deliver some shocking news. He had secretly obtained Moon-hyuk's official university admission report. This immediately piqued the curious grandfather's undivided attention. The moment he grabbed the paper, his eyes widened in pure disbelief. Suddenly, the scene cuts to an absolute frenzy of reporters crowding him. They scream that he just passed the entrance exam in first place nationwide. Earning 340 points, he completely shattered the regional record. They shout out questions, asking if he used expensive tutors or secret techniques. But he calmly replies that he only studied using standard textbooks. A reporter then begs him to give some advice to future test takers. With a straight face, Moon-hyuk tells them that studying is incredibly easy. Back at the mansion, his grandfather remains speechless. They were thrilled with the results. One night, they headed out to celebrate there. Hard work and friendship at a nightclub, the main character, Moon-hyuk, was slightly annoyed by his shouting friend, who insisted they deserved to have some fun. After studying hard for 3 years, Myung-soo, the owner's son, promised he would handle all the drinks in their table reservation. Moon-hyuk, suddenly remembering his past life where he drank the finest whiskeys, decided to join in. It had been a long time since he last had a drink, and he was actually looking forward to it, but upon tasting his glass, he realized this expensive whiskey was fake. Meanwhile, Myung-soo was already completely drunk, complaining about the burning feeling in his chest and wondering how this cheap stuff did not kill them. Moon-hyuk just said it was not bad, claiming it tasted like water, knowing he had to act normal since they were drinking at the establishment owned by Myung-soo's father. Suddenly, an employee walked over and introduced a stunningly gorgeous woman to Myung-soo, calling her the absolute most beautiful client in the club, asking them to take great care of her. Soon, Moon-hyuk's friends were already blushing red as the girls sat down with them to chat. One of the girls asked Moon-hyuk his age, mentioning that she was 21. Myung-soo, totally excited, blurted out that they were 20 and had just gotten into college a few days ago. When she asked which university, Moon-hyuk interrupted, saying they were just going to some small college in Seoul. At that moment, a rowdy group of men marched over, demanding to know what they were doing there. One guy complained that the girls had not come back from the restroom, only to find them leaving with these young boys. The woman complained that the club was awful, telling the man he should have realized she hated his fat pig face. The man was absolutely furious, and Moon-hyuk, sensing immediate danger, decided they needed to get out of there fast. He stood up, apologized, and told them they were already leaving. But when he glanced over at Myung-soo to make him stand up too, he realized something was terribly wrong. Suddenly, his friend completely snapped, shouting at the top of his lungs that he did not care anymore, which only made the older men angrier. Moon-hyuk grew worried about his drunk friend, who saw absolutely nothing wrong with his behavior because they just wanted to drink. Myung-soo even yelled that they were ruining his father's club, but Moon-hyuk firmly told him that was enough and they had to go. While they tried to leave, a glass was smashed onto the floor. The heavy man who threw it sneered, demanding to know where they thought they were going. An employee rushed over to calm the situation down, explaining these boys were the owner's son and friends celebrating their graduation. Ignoring him entirely, the angry man shoved the employee to the ground, calling him a bastard, and began kicking him while terrified customers fled the club. The men with him tried to hold him back, reminding him they had just taken over Napung and that they dealt with the young supplier who was currently bringing them their fake whiskey. At that moment, Moon-hyuk instantly realized who was behind the fake alcohol ring. Then Myung-soo's father, the owner of the establishment, stepped in and apologized, admitting his son was highly immature and promising he would handle this personally. He ordered the boys to get out and told his son to go wait at home. As Moon-hyuk kept his head down, Leading his friends toward the exit, the heavy man kept screaming, but the owner. He told them to settle this themselves, keep everyone else out of it. Suddenly, a sharp, brutal slap echoed, the giant bully now identified as Mr. Bung barked at the poor owner, asking if he was joking. The tables had turned. He kicked him hard, telling him he should have shown respect. Mongu lost it. Seeing his dad beaten, he charged the brute. Only to get slammed, the brute pinned him straight to the ground. He yanked his hair, promising a painful lesson about messing with complete strangers. Down on his knees, the old owner desperately begged Mr. Bung to stop. Please let my son go, the thug smirked, mocking his deep fatherly love. He tossed Mongu aside, raised his hand to strike the dad, but then his hand froze. Moon-hyuk finally stepped in. This was going too far. The massive thug stared, completely confused by how his hand was locked. Moon-hyuk spoke up, no matter how mad you are, never hit it. Father not in front of his kid. Frustrated, the heavy thug barked. Asking if punks lost their fear, he punched. Moon-hyuk slipped it easily. The other thugs lunged to strike, but suddenly, oh this is perfect, one went flying. Before the fat leader could even react, a backhand struck him. A massive slap sent him crashing straight down. Shocked, Moon-hyuk looked up and saw a guy waving casually. It was Dong-soo, the clever hospital thief. He grinned, waving. Having fun while I was gone, Dong-soo asked him. Looking at the heavy, he wondered how this fool had not been arrested yet. He must be a slippery rat to dodge the cops. The fat thug stood up, snarling that this was his territory. Dong-soo stepped closer, mocking him. Since when did Nododong belong to you? The old boss is back. He owns this place now. No arguments. Get lost before I paint the floor with your face. No jokes. The thug sweated, shivering. Dong-soo then turned with a warm smile to greet Moon-hyuk warmly. Great to see you. How have you been? Genuinely happy to see his buddy. Dong-soo dragged him off for a glass of soju. Alone. He mentioned seeing the news. Moon-hyuk was ranked first nationally. Absolute madness. I never expected that from you, he admitted. Moon-hyuk asked when he returned. Dong-soo said it had been a while, but he kept very quiet too. Reclaim his old turf. Moon-hyuk asked if he actually ran the area. Dong-soo nodded. Every street belongs to us now. No major battles. Either since the last gang was completely wiped out. Then he added, without Moon-hyuk's early warning, he would be serving major prison time right now. He was incredibly grateful. So what did Moon-hyuk need from him now? You saved my life. I refuse to live with unpaid debts. Moon-hyuk smiled softly. He understood the situation perfectly. Then he looked right at him. How long would it take to conquer all of Busan? He asked. Dong-soo was completely thrown off. Why ask about city business when he offered a favor? But Moon-hyuk looked him dead in the eye. Answering that this citywide takeover was exactly what he wanted, Dong-soo calculated. The timeline at most a single year, with everyone in prison. It would be extremely easy to take over. Only the small fish remained. Only small-time thugs remained. Moon-hyuk ordered him to seize Busan immediately. And to do it fast, while bribing the police and prosecutors along the way. Everything had to be clean. Moon-hyuk also warned him away from drugs. Due to an upcoming massive crackdown that no amount of connections could stop. It would be impossible to escape. Then Moon-hyuk made his real proposal. He told Dong-soo to prepare for their transition into the light. Dong-soo laughed at the irony, arguing that thugs like them could never do that. Someone from the shadows would always drag them right back into a new war. But Moon-hyuk just sighed, asking what the point of being a gangster even was. If they were actually planning on obeying every single law like good citizens. Dong-soo then pointed out that the Seoul gangs were already going corporate. They were transitioning fast, meaning Busan had to catch up immediately. Otherwise, those big city syndicates would sweep in and take over everything. Moon-hyuk told him to hire top lawyers and establish his own corporation. Once Busan was secured, they would make their move on Seoul itself. Dong-soo was utterly stunned, arguing that Seoul was a ruthless battlefield. Every heavy hitter from across the country went there to fight for dominance. Moon-hyuk calmly told him not to worry, he would back him up. He just needed to trust his plan and let him handle the preparations. Dong-soo calmed down, admitting it sounded crazy, but he felt strangely convinced. Getting more excited by the second, the gangster agreed it was worth trying. He wanted to take Seoul. To seal their deal, they poured more drinks. They filled up their glasses once again with some very expensive whiskey. But Moon-hyuk noted there was still one strict condition for this partnership. Throughout this entire operation, his own identity had to remain completely hidden. No one could ever discover his secret connection to Dong-su's faction. Their tie had to remain buried. He quietly took another sip of whiskey. Nobody could know his true identity until his final battle with the Chen family. The war inside his grandfather's mansion was coming. Meanwhile, at the estate, the old man was reading a newspaper article focused on his brilliant grandson. The headline quoted Moon-hyuk, and the old man burst out laughing. He was incredibly proud. Beside him, his director asked if he was happy. The president confirmed it, thrilled that a family member had entered Korea University. Even better, the boy was ranked among the absolute best in the nation. The legendary moneylender felt completely refreshed after talking to Samsung Group's chief. Those arrogant elites used to look down on his family for generations. They dismissed them as uneducated people who just bragged about their children. The director agreed, noting those same snobs behaved very differently in private. They talked trash, yet they always came begging the president for massive loans. Exactly, the old man sneered. They insulted him, but begged when desperate. They would literally plead for hours. After all, he never finished elementary school. He had to work instead, and his own children were terrible students too. Without his immense wealth, they never would have even smelled a college campus. The director then brought up Jisoo, the president's brilliant second daughter. She had successfully gotten into Korea University just the year before. The chairman gifted her a sweet 1% of Samsung Electronics shares. Grandfather agreed, praising Ju as a brilliant kid who deserved every bit. He truly favored Mook, constantly wishing the boy was more than a grandson. He wanted him as a direct heir bearing the proud Cheon name. Then the old man asked what the media said about the president-elect. The director noted he was busy picking his new committee members. Still, the grandfather had already locked down 2 highly powerful positions himself. He explained that under a civilian government, they must tread carefully. Pushing for more would look bad, but the old man already got it. He cut him off. Which roles did the director think were best? The director suggested securing the top spot in economic and political affairs. That would be perfect. The grandfather pressed for more details on that. He wanted to hear exactly how political control would work. Power like that meant complete control, police and prosecutors alike. A truly massive advantage. The president immediately made up his mind. They would make their move directly on the Blue House, and the director agreed. Shifting gears, the old man asked what Soo-han and Suman were doing lately. The director revealed that Suman was busy setting up a brand new business. But here is the catch: this new venture was tied to dangerous gangsters. Hearing that name made the old man absolutely lose his mind. The old man demanded to know how any mob survived the government war on crime. But the director explained that this syndicate had been quietly growing in the shadows. It was the notorious Blue Wind Society, a name he knew too well. He snarled, demanding to know why they were dealing with those thugs. The director admitted they were getting into the shady slot machine business. The grandfather lost it, screaming if cheap gambling was their absolute best. The director added that Congressman Kim was already in their pocket. His father-in-law was pushing the permits through to secure massive funds. The old man spat in disgust at his son's endless greed. He was acting like a puppet for his in-laws despite clear warnings. The director looked serious and asked how they should handle this. For now, the old man decided it was best to keep a very close eye on them. They needed to watch their every move before a major storm hit. Deep down, he regretted ever relying on the Blue Wind Society. That past mistake still haunted him, leaving a bitter taste in his mouth. He knew this was his karma, but he vowed to make things right. Before his time ran out, he would sever this curse once and for all. Meanwhile, the sun shone brightly over the lone shark grandfather's massive, luxurious estate. At the gate, a sharp young man was calling out for his grandfather. Our main character, Mook, was finally back, and the old man was thrilled. The old man warmly welcomed his grandson back, saying he had been waiting for him. Sitting together, the grandfather asked if Mook had settled on a place in Seoul. The old man offered to buy him a luxury apartment near his college. He even wanted to hire a full-time maid to handle everything for him. However, Mook politely declined, asking for a completely different favor instead. He wanted to live at his grandfather's house, ever since his very first visit. The boy had dreamed of staying there. He even argued that it would Make him feel closer to his late mother, who spent her youth in those halls. And let him spend more time with his grandfather. Hearing this, the old man smiled warmly. He teased that the boy sure knew exactly how to please him, and gladly gave his permission, but in his past life, things were totally different. Moon-hyuk only visited when summoned, completely ignored during family meetings, and treated like an outsider. And get this, the entire situation had now completely turned around. He just got accepted into the country's top law school, instantly transforming into the pride and joy of his wealthy grandfather. Over a cup of tea, the old man curiously brought up the promise Moon-hyuk had kept from 3 years ago to enter the prestigious Korea University. Now, the patriarch wanted to know what reward he wanted. Moon-hyuk smiled confidently, fully aware that he held the old man in the palm of his hand. He noted how eager his grandfather seemed after graduation. The grandfather readily agreed, admitting that such an incredible achievement was not something just anyone could pull off through pure wishing. It was impossible not to be impressed. Finally, the young man revealed his true desire. He wanted to learn his grandfather's trade from the inside. This shocking request left the tycoon and his director utterly speechless. Staring in complete disbelief, the old man asked if he heard correctly. Did he actually want to learn the business? Moon-hyuk firmly nodded. The tycoon questioned if the boy actually understood what he was asking, warning him that private lending was far deeper than just collecting money. Moon-hyuk calmly admitted he knew nothing, but he was absolutely certain his grandfather ran a highly unusual operation. And that was precisely why he wanted to master it. As the old man sat there deep in thought, Moon-hyuk calculated his next move to seize the family fortune and crush his relatives. He could have asked for cold hard cash, land, or real estate. But with his knowledge of the future, printing money would be effortless. The real danger was that raw wealth alone would paint a massive target on his back, giving his greedy uncles a chance to control him. Right now, he lacked the sheer power to defend his own assets, and the family war chest was still locked under his uncle's tight grip. His move was to play the eager student, gain his grandfather's absolute trust, and slowly bend the old man to his will. The legendary loan shark wanted to test his grandson one last time on this unexpected request. He asked if Moon-hyuk really considered this a fair prize for their 3-year bet, reminding him that he could demand far more, but Moon-hyuk countered that learning how to fish was infinitely better than just receiving a handout. The grandfather quieted down, mulling it over, before turning to his trusted director. The director kept his stance firm, advising that the kid was still too young, and they should wait until after he finished his university degree. Before they could sideline him, Moon-hyuk cut in with cold determination. Moon-hyuk wanted to jump straight into academic life immediately, but his grandfather turned serious. The old man reminded him of Korea University, asking a sharp question. Did he not want to become a powerful judge or lawyer? Moon-hyuk shook his head. Entering that elite school was merely a quick way to prove his sheer worth. His ultimate goal was to wield massive power, just like his grandfather. Silence. The legendary loan shark stared back, lost in deep thought. Moon-hyuk quietly added that if his grandfather really wanted a lawyer, he would comply. He was ready to clear the notoriously difficult bar exam whenever the time came. The old man scoffed, noting his grandson made passing sound almost too easy. Watching them, Director Ha found the young heir incredibly unpredictable. He wondered if his actual talent was far deeper than anyone realized. At last, the legendary old loan shark made up his mind and spoke. He told Moon-hyuk to proceed, ordering the director to teach him the business. Later, inside a quiet, private office, the two men sat face to face. Director Ha began explaining that while they ran a massive private loan business, they kept every single transaction completely within the boundaries of the law. To do that, Moon-hyuk had to master the legislation first. They absolutely required flawless, legally ironclad collateral for every deal. That meant claiming prime real estate, complex bonds, or high-value stocks. Specifically, they only target assets that could sway complete corporate control. The chairman personally funded massive conglomerates in desperate situations. They moved tens of billions daily, bypassing helpless banks. Moon-hyuk recognized this era. Back then, corporate banking was weak, leaving Myeongdong as the absolute financial hub. His grandfather practically controlled the entire money flow of the nation. Director Ha insisted that Moon-hyuk learn how to negotiate with corporate giants. To start, he dropped a towering, heavy stack of dense textbooks onto the table. Let us be real, who would not be completely overwhelmed by a stack that massive? The director explained these were legal briefs and active collateral contracts. Moon-hyuk was expected to read and dissect every single page. He had only 3 days to deliver a flawless, comprehensive summary. It felt incredibly awkward because he already knew all this material inside out. He just had to play dumb. A week later, the grandfather asked for an update. The director was absolutely astounded by the progress of the young man. Moon-hyuk tracked complex cash flows and caught hidden document patterns effortlessly. These highly advanced skills usually took decades of field experience to master. Yet the kid acted as if he had been doing this his entire life. The chairman hid his satisfaction, but internally he was incredibly proud. Director Ha added that they even brought him to corporate meetings. Moon-hyuk faced the powerful executives without showing a single hint of fear. He needed zero guidance, which was music to the ears of his grandfather. The director concluded that the boy would master everything within mere days. Hearing this, the legendary Old Lone King suddenly made an incredibly bold proposal. He wanted to put Moon-hyuk in charge of Myeongdong immediately. Director Ha gasped, was it not way too early for the local bosses to accept him? But the grandfather remained completely unbothered, full of absolute confidence. He is leaving his business to his grandson without needing their approval, the director pushes back, reminding him that even Chairman Chen Tisan and Chen Suman struggled with those ruthless loan sharks, doubting the young master could handle them. The chairman shrugs it off, saying they have to face these people eventually, so it is much better to do it sooner rather than later, ordering Director Ha to immediately collect all the Myeongdong accounts. The old man is incredibly eager to see what his grandson is truly capable of. Meanwhile, inside a luxurious corporate building, one of his other sons receives a phone call informing him that Moon-hyuk is heading over to Myeongdong. He hangs up in silence with a highly doubtful expression, starting to stare thoughtfully out at the city from the top of his building, wondering what his father is really planning with that young man. Meanwhile, under a bright sun in Seoul with traffic flowing pleasantly, our protagonist and the director are driving in a car. Moon-hyuk asks what kind of business his grandfather runs in Myeongdong, and the director explains that the country's 5 major banks are concentrated in that single district. Because of this, a massive loan market formed there, controlled by the chairman of the biggest conglomerates, while Suman and Suhan handled much smaller areas. The director continues, explaining that besides those two, there are 4 individuals known as the 4 bosses of Myeongdong. These men are the biggest private loan sharks in the region, moving tens and even hundreds of millions. Daily, the chairman trusts them with his money as an investor, and Moon-hyuk's task is to check if the funds are being managed properly. In a serious tone, Director Ha warns that those men have been in this business for a long time and will not be easy to handle. Even so, our protagonist answers confidently, saying it is no problem since he has to face them one day and it is better to do it early to learn. His answer surprises the director, who remains silent. At that time, the loan industry was full of vicious people that even gangsters feared, and the 4 bosses of Myeongdong were perfect examples of this. They have held their positions for decades and earned the trust of the legendary loan shark king, making them incredibly formidable. But remember, Moon-hyuk actually grew up in that very environment in his past life and died because of it. When they arrive at their destination, the two are greeted by one of the 4 bosses, who welcomes them in a friendly way. The man says he was looking forward to their visit and asks if the chairman is well, and the director confirms he is. Then the director introduces Moon-hyuk as the chairman's grandson. The young man nods and introduces himself while the boss extends his hand, introducing himself as Kim Ha-shik. He comments that he knows Moon-hyuk got into Korea University, mentioning that he also graduated from there. Keeping up appearances, the protagonist says he is looking forward to working with him, and then immediately sits down and asks to see the ledger. Surprised by his haste, Kim Ha-shik asks if he is going to start already and suggests they have some tea first. Unfazed, Moon-hyuk refuses, saying he is not used to that, and since it might take a while, he prefers to start with the ledger right away. The man then hands over the book, and our protagonist begins reading it carefully without analyzing slowly. The boss offered coffee with a confident grin. He confidently claimed there would be no mistakes since he had a business degree. But Moon-hyuk froze, noticing a strange detail. Though the ledger looked perfect, something was off. The lazy, messy Kim Ha-sik he remembered from his past life was never this incredibly careful. Keeping his guard up, Moon-hyuk praised the neat work and requested bank statements. With a silent nod, Ha-sik signaled his closest men. His subordinate brought them, and Moon-hyuk checked. He verified that 12 books were completely accurate, making the boss nod. The boss quickly added those were crucial accounts, and they absolutely could not afford to lose them. That was when Moon-hyuk thanked him before dropping a massive bombshell. He was taking all the books, instantly sending the boss into a furious rage. Moon-hyuk calmly explained the chairman ordered him to collect every single account. Cold sweat drenched Kim Ha-sik, who stared in utter shock. He stuttered, desperately questioning if this was actually a direct, official order coming straight from the chairman. Such sudden demands were impossible, but the serious young master stood his ground. He had zero reason to lie, suggesting they call Pyeongchang-dong immediately if there was any doubt. Moon-hyuk then asked if there was a secret reason to hide the books. If so, he should speak up now, leaving Ha-sik cornered. Awkwardly, Ha-sik mumbled there was absolutely no issue, he was just caught completely off guard. Seizing the chance, Moon-hyuk firmly requested that they speak in private. Instantly, Ha-sik's thugs stepped forward with dark, threatening glares. Director Ha immediately snapped, barked at them to respect the order. Ordering them to get out immediately, he made the worried men hesitate in confusion. As Moon-hyuk and the director watched, Kim Ha-sik suddenly leapt up. He violently slapped his own man, screaming about their absolute disrespect right in front of the young master. Screaming at them to get lost, he cleared out the entire room. Apologizing for his ignorant men, the boss lit a cigarette and asked why he was serious. Why was Moon-hyuk so serious? Ignoring him, the young master stood up. With a terrifyingly cold gaze, Moon-hyuk stood tall to remind him of his place. A mere servant should act like one instead of failing to read the room. He was too foolish to know his boundaries, leaving the boss utterly stunned. Kim Ha-sik stood up in a blind rage, shouting insults at the young master. But Moon-hyuk roared even louder, commanding the older man to sit down. Outside, his men heard the shouting and grew anxious. Earlier in the car, Moon-hyuk had warned Director Ha about this exact scenario. No matter what wild noises came from inside, the director was strictly forbidden to enter. Although the director worried, Moon-hyuk knew he had to handle this alone. If he could not break a small street boss, he could never face corporate giants in the future. Keeping that in mind, the loyal director stayed put just as ordered. The director waited patiently in the hallway, while Moon-hyuk cornered the sweating boss inside. He told Ha-sik to drop the act, exposing his secret financial fraud. While some embezzlement could be ignored, the look on Ha-sik's face shattered. Terrified, the boss watched Moon-hyuk continue. He had crossed a major line by touching the chairman's secret vault. Outraged, Moon-hyuk demands to know why that idiot did not bring the ledger. Sweating coldly, Ha-sik wonders how this kid knew about that secret account. It was supposed to be a tight secret between just him and the chairman. Moon-hyuk knows he has completely cornered Kim Ha-sik, who is shaking with anxiety. The young man stands firm, demanding his grandfather's secret books. Moon-hyuk is absolutely certain Ha-sik is managing them, and he won't back down. Back then, each of the 4 top bosses in Myeongdong received a special account. Each of those books held 1 trillion won, all registered under completely fake names. That makes a staggering 4 trillion won in total, which Moon-hyuk discovered. He found out about it while searching for his late grandfather's hidden inheritance. But when the real name financial law passed, that massive sum had already vanished. In reality, Ha-sik had been quietly using those funds to build his own empire. Moon-hyuk asks the trembling boss why he looks so utterly shocked to hear this. Terrified, Ha-sik keeps wondering how this could even be happening. Did the old chairman actually reveal the existence of these books to his grandson? Losing his patience, Moon-hyuk demands the man bring him the files immediately. Feeling the intense heat, the boss stammers and begs for just a little time. But Moon-hyuk remains stone-faced. This is not something he will wait for. Leaning back in his chair, the young man delivers a brutal ultimatum. If those books are not delivered in 10 minutes, he will expose everything. Ha-sik will be reported to the chairman. Talk about a brutal threat. Terrified, Ha-sik begs him to wait just 1 month, pleading for a personal favor. Hearing that word, Moon-hyuk pauses, then coldly notes that is no way to ask. Hashik can no longer hide the absolute panic written all over his face. He stands up and bows deeply before the young man, desperately begging for mercy. Manhwa relents slightly, giving him exactly 2 weeks to gather every single document. Not a single cent can be missing, he warns with a cold stare. He asks if the boss understands, and Hashik looks up with relief. Before leaving, Manhwa delivers one final warning to keep this quiet. If the other bosses find out about this, there will be serious trouble. He asks if they are clear, and Hashik nods, his voice trembling. Softening his tone, Manhwa says the bank statements will do for now. He promises to return in exactly 2 weeks to collect the rest. Stepping outside, he immediately runs into 3 men waiting in the hallway. They are Hashik's personal enforcers, and they do not look happy at all. But before they can act, Director Ha barks an order to clear out. The tough guys trying to intimidate Manhwa instantly freeze in pure terror. Without another word, Manhwa and Director Ha walk right past them and leave. The 3 enforcers quickly rush inside to check on their boss. They find Hashik utterly paralyzed, wondering how this kid could be so terrifying. He was supposed to be an ordinary boy, not a ruthless monster. The next day, the legendary old money lender asks how the meeting went. Director Ha reports that Manhwa successfully secured the ledger and bank statements. All of them were under fake names, with updates promised every 2 weeks. Nodding, the old man asks if there were any other issues during their chat. Director Kim Hashik reported that he treated Manhwa as a mere subordinate. But after their quick chat, the young master left with absolute soaring confidence. This shocking report left the old lender thoughtful. He asked who was next on the list, and Mr. Ha replied they would visit No Yuseon. The old man dismissed the director for a well-deserved break, and he complied. Soon, the chairman picked up his phone to make a call. He dialed Kim Hashik directly, asking how the meeting went and what he thought of Manhwa. Hashik hesitated, struggling to voice his actual thoughts. The long pause forced the impatient old man to ask him again. Kim finally reported that compared to the older brothers Sumin and Suhan, the kid was actually a spitting image of the chairman. The surprised old man demanded to know if he truly believed that. He then asked what they specifically talked about in private during their secret meeting. Once again, Kim Hashik let a tense silence take over. Stressed, the old man snapped that he hated repeating himself. Finally, Kim confessed that Manhwa had brought up those secret, entrusted bank accounts. The chairman froze instantly, his eyes widening in absolute shock. After a heavy pause, the old man quietly asked if there was anything else. Hashik reported he agreed to hand everything over in 2 weeks. The chairman told him to hand it over, but with one catch. Hashik waited in absolute terror, sweating while bracing for the old man's response. Instead, the chairman scolded him sharply for raising his voice at his own grandson. Hashik quickly apologized, swearing that it would never, ever happen again. Chairman Cheon coldly reminded him he was just a wealthy and glorified servant. And that did not mean he could ever sit at the same table. Calmer now, the chairman warned him to remember his true benefactor. Sweating coldly, Hashik replied that he would keep that in mind. With that warning delivered, the chairman silently hung up the phone. He pondered how Manhwa uncovered the secret ledgers hidden in Myeongdong. And honestly, why on earth did the boy want them handed over now? Not even the older brothers, Sumin and Suhan, knew they existed. He also wondered how Manhwa forced a boss like Hashik to yield. Then he smiled, recalling Hashik's words about the boy being just like him. That realization made the old man incredibly pleased with his heir. Another night passed at the grand mansion as Manhwa plotted his next move. He knew Hashik's weakness, but what about the others? Did the other Myeongdong bosses also dare to mess with those same bank books? His target was the massive 400 billion won hidden under borrowed names. That money would vanish once the real name financial system launched. Manhwa needed to secure those funds cleanly to fund his upcoming war. It would be his ultimate weapon against his greedy brothers. But grabbing that cash before the official system announcement seemed impossible. The very next day, a mountain of financial documents was prepared. After a careful review, Manhwa declared everything was completely in order. Now it was time to check those secret bank accounts himself. Taking the bank books every 2 weeks, with that settled, he asked the boss in Seok if he agreed, and the man quickly nodded. No more games, Moon-hyuk asked if he had other bank books belonging to the chairman. The boss tried playing dumb but seeing In Seok's reaction, Moon-hyuk knew Kim Ho-shik had kept him blind, so Moon-hyuk asked again if he held a bank book from the chairman. Secretly passed down, explaining the old man himself sent him to retrieve. It sweating nervously, the boss claimed only he and the chairman knew about its existence and insisted on calling him first, but Moon-hyuk tried to smooth things over, telling In Seok he could trust him completely. Knowing about the account proved the chairman wanted it handed over, judging by their panicked reactions, Moon-hyuk felt certain the money did not vanish when the banking system changed. He wondered if they still had it. After all, these men built their massive Myeongdong firms solely on his grandfather's good graces, yet they betrayed him. Moon-hyuk asked if he needed more time. Terrified, the boss promised 2 weeks, then quickly slashed it to 1 week. Moon-hyuk grinned internally. Moon-hyuk felt a wave of sweet relief. Smugly, he agreed that he would give them 1 week and keep his grandfather out of the loop. He knew the old man had been generous, but messing with a bank book was crossing a line. With a cold smirk, Moon-hyuk reminded him his grandfather was still healthy enough to strike back, warning him that mad dogs get put down. A dog biting its master cannot be ignored. Later, the young man went to meet another prominent boss, Shin Sun-il. He was a wrestling champion whom his grandfather had backed since childhood, making him incredibly loyal. In fact, he was the most loyal ally. Moon-hyuk read his accounts, intently keeping his guard up. Once the audit wrapped up completely, he asked Shin Sun-il for the chairman's secret bank book. To the young man's surprise, the giant did not even hesitate and instantly stood up to retrieve it. He walked to a portrait of the chairman, sliding it aside to reveal a safe in the wall. The giant man handed over the confidential book with absolute respect, an easy gesture which proved he had never pocketed a single cent, confirming why the old man trusted him so much. Afterward, they walked outside to say goodbye. Near the car, bowing deeply, the massive wrestler expressed how much he looked forward to their future dealings under the new young master. Moon-hyuk smiled and promised their next meeting would be somewhere far more relaxed. With a quick wave, they drove off. Only one target remained on their list: the notorious Yu-ji gang, the most seasoned and dangerous boss of the four. Unlike those who merely studied under his grandfather before branching out, he had gone head-to-head with Chairman Chin during the savage lone wars of the 1970s. As they drove, Director Ha asked if Moon-hyuk knew about his fearsome reputation. Moon-hyuk chuckled, saying he was well aware of the man who once single-handedly crushed the violent mobs trying to seize the lucrative Myeongdong market. People called him the Hammer, Chairman Yu. Inside the office, they find Yu Jigang completely focused on his work, wearing a serious expression. Spotting them, Yu Jigang casually tells them to wait for just a minute while offering them chairs. Director Ha immediately hates this rude attitude, finding it disrespectful and stepping forward to confront him, but Moon-hyuk keeps his cool and stops Director Ha before he can react. Moon-hyuk sits down to wait as Yu Jigang keeps his eyes glued to the paperwork. Time passes as the hours in that room drag on. Finally, Yu Jigang stands up from his chair, making Moon-hyuk and Director Ha highly anxious about what comes next. He strolls over to them, casually apologizing for making them wait so long. He explains that with the ledger he must report to the chairman. He had to get ahead and clean up the records, which is why it took some time. Mockingly, he asks if the young master is upset. With few words, Moon-hyuk calmly says he will just review the documents. Adopting an offensive tone, Yu Jigang remarks that Director Ha has been working extremely hard lately. He scoffs that changing diapers and taking care of the kid is complicated. But Moon-hyuk does not flinch. Talk about absolute steel without letting up. The boss claims the chairman is too hard on the director since he is not really suited for the job, making things highly difficult. Getting even bolder, Yu Jigang suggests that if Director Ha cannot train Moon-hyuk, he should send him over anytime so he can train the kid from A to Z. Staying firm, Director Ha warns Yu Jigang to watch his mouth, reminding him that this is the chairman's grandson. But completely unshaken, Yu Jigang scoffs, claiming he does not understand why he must tiptoe around a child when simply calling him young master should be plenty. Intending to insult them, he scoffs that old-fashioned role-playing like that is only fit for loyal people like Director Ha, telling them not to try forcing those rules on him since he has run this place for years. Now trying to insult Moon-hyuk directly, Yu Jigang asks if the kid even knows what he is reading, demanding he just hand the papers to Director Ha to avoid wasting more precious time. Moon-hyuk finds this petty provocation incredibly childish, but he simply states that he is already almost finished. Surprisingly, there is nothing wrong with the financial records, which is suspicious in itself, but regardless, that does not matter right now. Moon-hyuk then firmly declares that since there is no issue with the ledger, Yoo Jigang must hand over the secret bank book. The boss scowls, demanding to know why, so Moon-hyuk explains that the chairman personally ordered him to retrieve it, proving his utter lack of respect. Yoo Jigang blows a thick cloud of cigarette smoke right into Moon-hyuk's face and sneers that the chairman needs to come down here himself. He argues that this is the only correct way, since the chairman handed it to him personally, meaning he should only return it in person as well. Leaning in, he asks if Moon-hyuk disagrees with his logic. A thick, tense silence fills the room. Director Ha, losing his temper, snaps that Yoo Jigang is taking this disrespectful joke too far. In response, the boss says he never jokes when it comes to business and is simply teaching the young master. He claims that in business, proper formalities must be respected, asking if Director Ha had failed to teach these basic rules to Moon-hyuk. Gi-gang, the scarred man, sneers and asks if the director has been getting soft lately. This immediately strikes a major nerve. Director Ha prepares to turn violent, but Moon-hyuk quickly steps in. He calmly tells him to step outside, radiating absolute confidence. The director nods and leaves, leaving Moon-hyuk alone with the scarred man. With the room now dead silent, Moon-hyuk demands the secret ledger immediately. Gi-gang looks completely caught off guard, unable to believe they actually told him. He mocks the idea, noting that the chairman must really trust Moon-hyuk. But Gi-gang does not care at all, insisting the old chairman must come personally. He demands the old man face him directly if he wants the book. Suddenly, Moon-hyuk snaps, roaring Gi-gang's name with all his might. Gi-gang absolutely loathes being yelled at, asking how this kid dares disrespect him. Then Gi-gang snaps, shouting that long before Moon-hyuk was born, he was protecting the chairman, cleaning up all of his bloody fights. He declares that a mere brat like him has no right to talk back. He continues, screaming that only the chairman himself can give him any real orders. None of the old man's useless sons will ever boss him around. Fuming with pure rage, Gi-gang spits that sharing the chairman's blood does not put them on the same level or give him any real power. Undeterred, Moon-hyuk stands up and coldly shouts Gi-gang's name again. Gi-gang's hand instantly drops to his heavy hammer, starting to brag. He boasts about saving the chairman's life countless times with that tool. Countless thugs who dared to break in had their skulls completely crushed. That hammer is the bloody history and living proof of the Myeongdong loan market. So he warns the kid not to mess with him, but Moon-hyuk smiles. Moon-hyuk knows he wants to fight, while Gi-gang mockingly chuckles. He claims this naive kid has absolutely no idea how brutal this world is. Moon-hyuk realizes he is just trying to assert dominance. But his massive confidence makes him wonder where all of this is coming from. Gi-gang is definitely in no position to rebel against his powerful grandfather. This realization leaves a massive, nagging question scratching at the back of his mind. Moon-hyuk brushes it aside, giving him a final ultimatum. He gives him exactly 24 hours to hand over every single secret bank statement. If he continues playing these games, Moon-hyuk will not let it slide. Turning his back, he heads for the door, but a sudden shout stops him. Gi-gang is right there behind him, about to smash his skull with the hammer. Moon-hyuk does not even flinch, standing perfectly still as the heavy metal weapon descends. But the impact never comes. Gi-gang freezes the heavy weapon inches away. A twisted, surprised grin spreads across his face, with the heavy iron tool still aimed at him. Sweating slightly, he admits the kid actually has some of his grandfather's courage. He laughs, confessing he fully expected the kid to wet himself in terror. Moon-hyuk merely sneers, asking why he even swings a weapon he cannot use. He mocks him, pointing out he lacks the actual guts to strike a single blow. He notes that the moment he attacks, Gi-gang will also end up dead. Did he really think a pathetic bluff would scare him? Moon-hyuk orders Ji-gang to get all those bankbooks ready by tomorrow if he wants to live. If he wants to live, that is. Heading out, Moon-hyuk warns him not to try that again. Try it one more time and he will get his head bashed in. Ji-gang is absolutely furious. His nerves are completely shot, but he stays quiet. Later, inside the car, they head back. Moon-hyuk and director Ha are already making their way back home from their tense trip. Director Ha asks what went down, sensing there was some major trouble back there. But Moon-hyuk is way too calm, replying that it really was not a big deal. Just Jae-gang trying to smash his head with a hammer. Hearing this, director Ha slams the brakes. Right in the middle of the highway, he simply cannot believe what he is hearing. Shaken to his core, he turns around to ask if Moon-hyuk is actually unharmed. Traffic starts backing up behind them, but Moon-hyuk just points out they are blocking the road, holding up everyone else behind them. Shortly after, they arrive back at the massive estate. The grand mansion of Cheon, the lone shark king himself, the old boss, is waiting. He demands an immediate briefing on what happened with Jae-gang. Director Ha reports. He reports that the target wants the chairman to collect the bank books personally. But the boss knows there is more to it and asks what else happened. Director Ha admits they actually tried to crack the young master's head open with a hammer. But he quickly adds that Moon-hyuk is completely fine. The old man frowns deeply. He wonders what would drive Jae-gang to pull such a suicidal, reckless stunt. Director Ha is baffled. Ever since Jae-gang set up shop in Myeongdong, he has always competed with the lone shark king, but never anything this insanely bold before. It almost felt like he was deliberately trying to provoke them into a fight. Jaeon calmly tells Director Ha to handle this messy situation himself, giving him full authority to clean it up and ensure there are zero future issues. The director nods, promising to get this sorted out right away. Meanwhile, Jae-gang is riding in his car, laughing it off over the phone, telling them it is no big deal, that Moon-hyuk is just some green kid. He just wanted to give him a little warning shake, nothing more. Mocking Moon-hyuk as weak and claiming the old chairman has finally lost his edge. Suddenly, a massive truck barrels down, about to slam right into his rear bumper. A horrific crash follows, and just like that, he is out cold. He wakes up tied to a chair in a damp basement, gagged and terrified. Standing right before him is a dark figure radiating pure, cold bloodlust. It is Director Ha. Jae-gang begins to shake, completely unable to make a sound. His eyes widen as he spots the heavy steel hammer in the director's grip. Fear turns into pure panic. Director Ha casually swings the heavy weapon. The massive man smiles. Let us have a nice, quiet little chat. Bound tight, Jae-gang thrashes in terror, kicking his legs wildly. He aims the hammer at him, silently threatening him before pulling the gag. Immediately, he screams that the director will never get away with this. Completely unfazed, the giant simply asks if he tried to hurt the young master. Specifically, if he tried to bash Moon-hyuk with that very same hammer. He swings it down, stopping a hair's breadth from his face, demanding to know exactly why the hell he dared to try it. Trembling, Jae-gang stammers out that he was only trying to test Moon-hyuk. He swore he was just testing the kid, insisting he never actually planned to lay a finger on him. Desperate, he kept yelling that he would never hurt the chairman's own blood. He begged Director Ha to believe him, offering to hand over every single bank book. But right in the middle of his begging, a heavy metal crash echoes through the room. Two of the director's henchmen walk in, carrying a cold, heavy metal container between them. With a cold, terrifying face, Director Ha asks, "Who told you to do it?" Shaking with pure terror, the scoundrel stammers that he has absolutely no idea what they mean. He desperately repeats that he was only testing Moon-hyuk, but the director stays completely silent. Instead, the suited director casually gestures to his men. They slide a heavy table forward. They slide it right over the tied-up president and begin untying his hands. Not knowing what is coming next only makes his despair run deeper. One henchman slams his hand down onto the wooden table, pinning it firmly in place. The terrified president thrashes wildly, desperately trying to pull himself free. Standing tall, Director Ha warns him his next answer had better satisfy him. Asking again who sent him, the long-haired man just keeps denying it. "Nobody ordered me to do anything," he screams. Suddenly, the director raises a hammer. The hammer comes down hard, crushing the president's finger in a sickening instant. Blood splatters everywhere, and through the agony, the director asks the question again. Sobbing through the pain, the man repeats his lie. No time is wasted. Another finger gets completely crushed, forcing a high-pitched scream of mercy from him. Once more, Director Ha calmly demands to know who gave the order. Clinging to consciousness, the bloody president screeches that Director Ha is a lunatic. That answer gets him nothing but another strike, the hammer falling repeatedly. It gets incredibly brutal. he swings until the table is stained with blood. Director Ha looks down, asking President Yoo-jung one final time to speak up. He warns him to save whatever fingers he has left on his right hand. Who gave the order? The president stays silent, staring down at his ruined hand. Mercilessly, the suited director simply orders his men to pin him down tighter. Faced with losing his entire hand, the broken scoundrel finally snaps. He begs them to stop, screaming that he will tell them everything they want. He confesses that Chon Soo-min ordered the hit, taking us back 1 week earlier. Inside a massive, luxurious estate, 4 powerful presidents are gathered in a private room. A highly influential figure arrives, surrounded by guards bowing deeply to him. Stepping inside, Chon Soo-min greets the room, noting it has been quite a while. The 4 presidents bow deeply, quickly settling down to begin their meeting. One president asks why they were summoned here so urgently today. He wonders what business could possibly require all 4 of them to gather. Chon Soo-min smirks, asking if they have heard about the new kid around. The fighter president speaks up, asking if he means the chairman's mysterious grandson. The late Mrs. Emsuk's son, that is. Chon Soo-min nods in confirmation. He confirms the boy is currently learning the family business from his grandfather. Another president notes the young man's sudden appearance is bound to stir up trouble. He's already glued to the old man, which will spark some nasty rumors. Chon Soo-min smiles, reminding them they are all basically family here. Even so, rumors are spreading about who will inherit the massive foundations. Of another air, a heavy silence fills the room as all the presidents process this. They already know. Soo-min claims he has absolutely no idea how long his father will survive, urging them to act quickly to protect themselves and prevent some street bastard from meddling with the old man's massive fortune. Careful now, a fighter president warns Soo-min to watch his mouth. After all, the legendary Chairman Shin is still very healthy and sharp. Mistake admitted, the man with the scarred mouth backtracks, pivoting quickly. He insists they must eliminate anyone clouding the old man's judgment. Quiet returns to the boardroom. One boss points out a major catch. Since Kim Mayuk is the grandson, it is purely a family affair. Feud. Soo-min immediately fires back. This is business, not family. He asks if they think he is actually scared of a mere child. Soo-min claims he only fears how the patriarch's choices will impact business. Shifting politics could ruin their entire operation. The bosses trade tense looks. Wait for it. Soo-min then drops a bomb. Director Ha is visiting them. He will be bringing the new young master along for the rounds. Soo-min makes a simple demand: test Kim Mayuk and see his true colors. Silence. Then President Yoo steps up, breaking the tense standoff. He slams his glass down, eager to see if the kid is actually useful. This 20-year-old punk knows absolutely nothing, President Yoo scoffs. President Yoo vows to teach the arrogant rookie a very painful lesson. Soo-min beams with joy, praising President Yoo for his quick understanding. He urges the other presidents to think very carefully about the future. Chairman Shin's time is running out, and his empire needs a leader. Soo-min leaves his nephew's fate in their hands, plotting from the shadows. Meanwhile, Chairman Shin realizes his own son is pulling the strings. The director reports that President Jeong volunteered to test Kim Mayuk. The chairman asks for the outcome, and his assistant delivers bad news. Hospitalized, Jeong lost his left hand entirely after a brutal surgery. Chairman Shin notes that Jeong served him loyally for 30 years. He orders his men to let the broken veteran retire in peace without further harm. The director asks what to do with the duplicitous Cheon presidents next. Visibly annoyed, the old patriarch vows to handle both of them personally. Meanwhile, the terrified Cheon presidents panic over the brutal news. They learn that Jeong's hands were completely crushed with a hammer. Now they are absolutely terrified that the ruthless chairman already knows their plot. Ring. The office phone suddenly blares, shattering their paranoid peace. The bolder president answers with rage, but immediately begins begging for mercy. A cold voice on the other end of the line delivers a terrifying warning to them. The chairman already knows that Soo-min is behind the entire conspiracy. Chairman Shin demands to know if Soo-min ordered the Myeongdong bosses test. Soo-min stammers, nervously claiming he only wanted them to take care of him. The formidable chairman listens to the weak excuse in icy silence. Boom, he explodes, demanding to know when Soo-min will grow up. He wonders if his foolish son did this out of pure jealousy. He felt threatened by a boy who just turned 20. the old man added that because of Suman's reckless actions, he was seriously questioning whether he should still make Manhwa his heir. Suman tried to apologize, but his father shut him down. The old moneylender cut him off entirely. He did not want to hear another word about him targeting his grandson, delivering a dead serious final warning. If it happened again, he would kick him out of the family without a single penny. Hearing this threat, Suman flinched, wondering if his father would actually do it. The associate standing right next to him was dying to know what the old man said. But the call cut out. Furious, Suman threw his phone hard against the wall, cursing Manhwa for driving a wedge between him and his father. Meanwhile, over at the old man's estate, things were getting chaotic. A director reported that President-elect Kim Manson was reorganizing the House Council. He explained the new president would shake up the army immediately upon taking office, purging all council members who failed to meet regularly. The old man muttered that the president likely planned this from the very start. Sure, they helped overthrow the old military regime, but their usefulness had run out. They had zero future in this new era. Still, the old man wondered if the military would really just roll over. After all, they used to own the country. The director admitted that some officers were already whispering about a potential coup. Hearing this, the moneylender pondered the threat, turning to Manhwa, who was quietly reading a newspaper on the sofa, asking for his opinion. Manhwa calmly argued that the military would not fight back because the president had already replaced the entire cabinet and the security commander, completely neutralizing the military's core. The whole cleanup took just 4 hours. Manhwa added that even if they tried to resist, they were too traditional to act without the council's backing. There was simply nobody left in the ranks willing to step up. He concluded that, above all, the public would absolutely never tolerate another coup. The citizens would block any attempt to install a new military regime. Hearing this sharp analysis, the old man was thrilled that Manhwa had such an interest in politics. Manhwa casually explained that politics was actually the biggest variable in his business. He had to track every minor update, even though he already knew exactly how the next 30 years would unfold. Talk about an unfair advantage. The old man then asked if there were other major plans in motion. The director reported that honestly, nobody knew what the VIP wanted. Not even the secret informants they planted nearby could find out. But they did uncover that the next big conference would target a massive war on corruption. Because of this, the new administration would force all high-ranking officials to completely disclose their personal assets. This move was bound to trigger massive pushback across the board. The old moneylender nodded, expecting as much, though it was still a massive and sudden shift. He then brought up the real name financial system. The director answered that there was absolutely no mention of it yet, leaving major corporations completely in the dark. Hearing this, the old man turned to the director for his personal opinion. Mr. Ha explained. Everyone expected the real name financial system to trigger severe side effects. Those consequences would take up to a year to surface, delaying any real implementation. This meant it would likely wait until the end of the president's term. Disclosing assets and dissolving the council was already a lot. Forcing this new system now would only burden the president. Hearing this, the president turned around to ask for Manhwa's opinion. Manhwa firmly stated the system would go into effect this year, no matter what. Getting uneasy, the president asked what based this sudden, bold prediction. Manhwa explained that political circles had debated this issue since the 70s. Every past attempt failed, crushed by massive political backlash. But knowing the current president's style, he was preparing in secret. He would likely drop it on everyone as a sudden surprise. The president laughed out loud, calling Manhwa smart but politically naive. He explained that a politician's fate is forever tied to their funding. Once the system goes live, all those hidden accounts get exposed. They would have no way to clean their tracks in such a short time. Manhwa agreed on that point, but noted a much larger problem on the horizon. They urgently needed to secure funds sitting in anonymous and borrowed accounts. Seeing Manhwa's genuine worry, the president calmly reassured him. He told him everything was safe, split up among highly trusted allies. Looking serious, Manhwa warned his grandfather that human greed knows no bounds. Borrowed names work fine right now because they hold the seals and checkbooks. But once this new law lands, the president will lose total control. He would be locked out of his own funds, which is a massive crisis. In reality, this exact system had cost Mayuk's grandfather dearly before. He previously lost nearly one-fourth of his total wealth this way. Mayuk knew the new financial rules would land this August. Without swift action, the old man stood to lose an absolute fortune. The old president fell silent, carefully weighing his grandson's warning. He asked if Mayuk truly believed this would all happen within the year. Mayuk nodded, claiming it was nothing more than a very strong intuition. It might face slight delays, but it would not pass this summer. Suddenly, the president shifted gears and brought up another mystery. He asked if intuition also revealed those bank books hidden in Mingdang. The old man noted that he had kept those accounts a total secret. He demanded to know how his young grandson managed to find out. Mayuk was ready for this. He explained his observations during the meeting. When receiving the books, the tense faces in the room gave it away. He later pulled them aside in private to ask them directly. Sensing their hesitation, they eventually cracked and spilled the entire truth. His grandfather asked if this was all really just simple intuition. Mayuk smiled and confirmed that yes, his gut was rarely wrong. The old man called Mayuk closer for something serious, and get ready, because this is huge. He decided to hand over 400 billion from his secret funds. He trusted Mayuk to protect and deploy it, warning him not to waste it. This money would be the absolute last he would ever receive. Did he understand that clearly? Moon-hyuk bowed his head, quietly promising he would not make a single mistake. Moon-hyuk knew this day was coming. Still, he was shocked Kaeun Tison actually entrusted him with everything. Even the massive 400 billion won slush fund from Mangdang. This meant he could finally accelerate his plans against the Kaeun brothers. Every bit of trust he built with his grandfather had finally paid off. Later at the family mansion, after Moon-hyuk had already left, the old president ordered his director to consolidate all their hidden accounts. Every single fake name account had to be fully prepped by July. As the director bowed and left, the old man sat there alone. He kept thinking back to Moon-hyuk's warning about the August financial reform. If that kid is right, he possesses an almost godlike instinct for wealth. Then came February 1993, bringing a massive political shift. The country inaugurated its very first civilian president in decades. No more military rulers. This was the dawn of a new era. Instantly, the new leader launched aggressive reforms across the entire nation. You just know this major shakeup was about to turn the financial world upside down. Meanwhile, the grand admission ceremony at Korea University was already underway. Moon-hyuk stood proud on stage, accepting a top honor from the faculty. Roaring applause filled the hall as everyone celebrated his achievement. Outside afterward, his buddy Mongu was practically dying of sheer boredom. Mongu groaned, asking what they should do since classes had not started. Moon-hyuk simply smiled, saying he planned to head straight to the library. Mongu stared at him like he had grown a second head. Who actually goes to study on day one of college? Moon-hyuk just shrugged, saying they should at least locate their campus library. Shaking his head, Mongu pointed out how clean Moon-hyuk's accent had become. He barely got to Seoul, yet he already sounded like a local. Was he trying to charm the city girls? Mongu wanted to party. He wanted to hit the trendiest district to celebrate, but Moon-hyuk declined. Mongu swore he would not mess up like last time. Moon-hyuk sighed, asking if all he ever thought about was partying. Should they not be focusing on their upcoming exams instead? Mongu confidently declared he would easily breeze through their first round of exams. He kept begging relentlessly until Moon-hyuk finally gave in. But he set a strict limit, a few quick drinks, then home. That night they found themselves packed inside a noisy, chaotic club. Honestly, watch him try and fail miserably to charm the local girls. He called it the scent of youth, though they looked thoroughly annoyed. He yelled over the loud music, explaining this rock cafe was absolutely legendary. Back in Busan, you could never find a wild spot like this. Moon-hyuk just sat in the corner, nursing his drink in silence. Suddenly, a girl walked right up to him with wide eyes. She and her friend immediately recognized him as the school's top student. At Korea University, everyone assumed Moon-hyuk was just a quiet model student who only studied. But seeing him at a club changed everything. Some college girls approached and introduced themselves. They were second-year students who heard all about his perfect exam scores. Getting flirty, one girl joked that Moon-hyuk looked way more handsome in person. She couldn't believe the nation's top scorer actually had a face like that. Naturally, they wanted to sit with him. Uninterested, Moon-hyuk muttered that he didn't care. But he warned them he was leaving the second he finished his drink. Monggu quickly cut in, saying they should all just have fun tonight. With the music blasting and the vibe feeling right, they sat down to chat. The whole group crowded around the table, keeping the conversation going. The girls asked if they had been friends for a long time. Monggu replied they'd been friends since childhood, prompting one girl to notice something. She pointed out his accent, and Monggu confirmed he was originally from Busan. He asked if they had ever visited Gwangali Beach, making her giggle at his cute accent. Meanwhile, the other girl nudged Moon-hyuk, asking why he was acting so quiet. But she figured handsome guys are allowed to be mysterious and silent. Just looking at his face made her day, but wait, look who just walked in. A man in a suit called out, shocked to see Moon-hyuk in a place like this. Moon-hyuk recognized the annoying voice of Jiwan, and the girls recognized him too. She asked if he knew Moon-hyuk, while our main character wondered how this guy showed up. Deciding it was best to avoid drama, Moon-hyuk abruptly announced they were leaving. He nudged Monggu to stand up, but his friend wanted to stay for more drinks. Moon-hyuk gave him a serious look, telling him to finish one last beer. He turned to Jiwan, telling him to enjoy his night and just ignore them. But he warned him to keep it cool and not cause any trouble. The girls who liked Moon-hyuk whined, clearly unhappy about him leaving. As she tried to follow him, a hand suddenly grabbed her arm. Jiwan held her back, sneering about why she was hanging out with low-class trash. Disgusted by his arrogance, she snapped that who she hung out with was none of his business. Watching the drama unfold, Moon-hyuk sighed, realizing drinking always brought trouble. Seriously, why does every single night out have to end in a massive brawl? Since the girl was begging Jiwan to let go and he wasn't listening, Moon-hyuk stepped in. Our main character grabbed the jerk's hand, commanding him to let her go. Jiwan glared at him, barking at the bastard to release him immediately. He warned Moon-hyuk not to touch him, but Moon-hyuk knew this idiot's pattern. Jiwan had been causing problems since they were kids. His constant troublemaking always stressed out their grandfather. Leaning in close, Moon-hyuk whispered. He admitted knowing him was embarrassing, warning the punk to stop acting up. Otherwise, their grandfather would have to clean up his mess. The threat hit Jiwan hard, turning his face pale with sudden distress. But his embarrassment quickly turned to rage, and he called for his bodyguards. 3 massive thugs quickly arrived, complaining that their fun had been interrupted. Moon-hyuk expected nothing less from a coward who couldn't fight his own battles. Pointing at Moon-hyuk, Jiwan ordered his men to squash this annoying cockroach. He assured them there would be no consequences. Meanwhile, Moon-hyuk quietly braced for impact. Mayuk told Monggu to get the older students out of there, but his terrified friend asked if they would really be okay. Mayuk just grinned had he forgotten who he was. To Mayuk's surprise, Monggu was actually talking about the enemies, wondering if they would survive, but before Myung-soo could even finish his warning, Mayuk was already being ambushed, but he managed to dodge by luck and fought back instantly. With a devastating punch that flattened his opponent, feeling the same childhood joy he felt when beating up school bullies. Meanwhile, the music kept playing. In the empty club, now a total wreck, and Jiwan could not hide. The pure terror on his face, looking at all his defeated, unconscious henchmen. Scattered on the floor, suddenly, Mayuk appeared right in front of him to finish things. He started telling him to stop hanging out with trash and acting like a cheap thug since their grandfather already knew everything. The young man could hardly believe that a pathetic guy like Jiwan was their family's eldest son, because of this. Mayuk warned him, if this happened again, he would not let it slide. Cousin or not, Jiwan lowered his head, completely defeated, and agreed. He understood completely. Walking away, Mayuk told him to clean up this mess and ensure no innocent bystanders were bothered by his stupidity. He finished with a threat: if it happened again, they would meet again. That promise left the thug completely paralyzed with fear. Later, on a bright, sunny day with clear blue skies, classes at Hagu University went on as usual. Professor asked the lecture hall if anyone knew what Article 1 of the Constitution actually stood for. Instantly, a young student raised his hand, answering that the Republic of Korea is a democratic republic. The professor nodded in approval and immediately followed up with a question about Section 2 of that same article. This time, absolute silence filled the room. Seeing no hands, the professor explained that the actual sovereignty of their country resides in the people, and all state authority flows directly from them. He urged those aspiring to become prosecutors, lawyers, or judges to always keep these fundamental pillars close to their hearts. After all, any legal professional who forgets this is no true public servant. Leaving the lecture hall, Moon-hyuk was joined by Myung-jin. Moon-hyuk asked about their plans with Hyung-sung tonight, but his friend replied that Hyung-sung was completely tied up with training. Suddenly, a voice from behind called Moon-hyuk's name. Turning around, they saw a stunning woman asking if he was indeed Moon-hyuk. Myung-jin was completely starstruck by her beauty, desperately wanting to know who she was. She introduced herself as Chanji-soo, confident that Moon-hyuk already knew her identity. Moon-hyuk recalled that although this was their first meeting in this current life, her cold, arrogant expression was instantly familiar. He knew she was the daughter of his Uncle Chan Suman and the president's own granddaughter. Moon-hyuk clearly remembered those eyes and how she had treated him like an insect in his past life. Breaking the silence, Chanji-soo asked if he had some free time to talk. Moon-hyuk was quiet for a brief moment, carefully weighing his response. Soon after, inside a luxury car, she apologized for the delayed introduction, explaining that it had been ages since she last visited her grandfather. She then mentioned hearing about his perfect university entrance exam score and how he graduated at the. She revealed she also studied business administration, graduating top of her class. Zero patience for small talk, Moon-hyuk asked why she was here. He had a friend to meet, but she was unfazed. Teasing him for being cold, she smiled at their first real meeting. Cautious as ever, Moon-hyuk blamed his uncle's strict upbringing for his guard. Since she was their daughter, he had to play it safe. But Jisoo already knew he had taken over Myeongdong. That crazy underworld victory was exactly why she sought him out. And watch this, she got straight to business with a bold proposal. An alliance. She stretched out her hand to lock it in. They had no reason to oppose each other in this game. She cared nothing about their grandfather's business or who inherited it. Her real target, the massive Samsung group itself. Finally, Moon-hyuk understood. She wanted the crown but needed his help. In exchange, she promised to help him become the next successor. Without him, her brother Jiwon was guaranteed the throne. But now the board was reset. It was war. If they allied, she would supply crucial data to destroy him. Moon-hyuk scoffed. He thought Jiwon was too weak to be a threat. She was vastly overestimating her brother's actual capabilities. But Jisoo warned him, never underestimate the family's eldest grandson. Grandfather's affection only went so far. Moon-hyuk was still an outsider. If Jiwon secured support from Samsung, the table would turn instantly. Moon-hyuk had to be careful. He asked what she wanted in return. Because every real alliance comes with a massive price tag. Jisoo laid out her brutal terms. Once Moon-hyuk took the throne, he must back her with all his future Samsung shares. Moon-hyuk found it odd. Blood relatives usually backed each other anyway. If Jiwon won, surely he would protect his own sister. Jisoo let out a bitter, cold laugh at his innocence. Jiwon's ambition was too greedy. He would swallow Samsung whole. Still highly suspicious, Moon-hyuk questioned if her plan was even possible. Samsung already had a strict succession line. Jisoo just smiled. She was not reckless enough to claim the entire conglomerate. She just wanted half, her mother's rightful share as the eldest. Suddenly, Moon-hyuk's mind raced back to his previous life. Jisoo had launched a massive succession war after the president died. She fought like a demon, securing 1/3 of Samsung. But by then, the company was completely broken and ruined. She was a lethal snake, ready to strike the moment he turned. So why propose this deal now? It made no sense. Moon-hyuk spoke up, pointing out she was making a terrible mistake. Confused, she listened closely as he laid out her strategic error. She was siding with a losing underdog for a mere promise. If he failed, she got nothing. She was risking it all. She would be in serious trouble if he ever betrayed her. Ju thought about it and agreed he was right. She was at a clear disadvantage. Even so, she confessed. She simply could not stand the thought of her brother taking over all the family assets. Saying that scoundrel had gotten everything since childhood, it was unfair, and she wanted to see someone else snatch his guaranteed victory. Moon-hyuk was quite pleased with her words. He promised to consider it. Anxiously, the woman pressed him for a quick answer, warning that a rejection meant she would have to find another path to get what she wanted. Soon after, Moon-hyuk stepped out of the vehicle and she sped away. Just then, Mongjin reappeared looking for his friend. He asked about that gorgeous girl, complaining with pure envy that only Manhwa got the beautiful ladies, though Manhwa clarified she was only his cousin, whom he had just met. Hearing this, Mongjin grinned widely already, dreaming about somehow becoming his brother-in-law. Meanwhile, Manhwa remained silent. In his past life, she did not even treat him like a human being. Now, she was offering a highly profitable alliance. Was this a golden opportunity, or was it a highly dangerous trap? Back at the massive mansion, Cheon, his powerful grandfather, asked if Manhwa had enjoyed his first class. Manhwa mentioned that his cousin came to meet him. His grandfather noted that since the boy had no siblings, he should at least get along with his cousins. Reassuring the old man, Manhwa said he decided to keep in touch with her, though it was secretly his plan to capture the Samsung assets. Then the big boss asked why his grandson wanted to see him. The moment he got home, faced with this, Manhwa got straight to the point. He brought up the 400 billion won in the secret account given to him and announced that he wanted to transfer all the funds abroad. He argued that since there was no immediate need for that cash, investing it internationally made the most sense. His grandfather assumed he was just confident, but reminded him of their initial terms. He made it clear this was the absolute last money Manhwa would ever receive. Because of this, the old boss suggested keeping it in the country to preserve their stable position, questioning why he insisted on sending it away. Manhwa knew moving money abroad was incredibly hard, especially with the strict new policies. But he knew the immense political power of his grandfather made it highly possible. He then argued that, based on his own calculations, the current administration was already introducing highly unfavorable economic policies. For his grandfather, even if they were not targeted directly, Manhwa believed that the vast underground economy controlled by Cheon would suffer heavily. For this reason, he believed moving the capital was crucial, pitching a clever plan. They could easily route the 400 billion won using several corporate accounts. Cheon agreed that transferring the funds was easy, but he still wanted a solid logical reason to do so. He questioned if it was not a bit reckless to act so fast over laws that had not even been passed yet. Standing firm, Manhwa stated that since the money was given to him, he really needed support from his grandfather. In his mind, he knew this aggressive push was highly risky, but it was his only option since he could not just reveal his memories of the future. Suddenly, Cheon, the grandfather, burst into a hearty laugh, comparing Mook to his uncles. Those uncles could barely speak without stuttering, making him wonder about this grandson. Was the kid completely fearless, or just brimming with raw spirit? Either way, the old man admitted he had been laughing a lot lately. So he agreed to release the funds, prompting Mook to seize his chance. He requested the entire 400 billion won, begging for 0 questions for 7 years. The old chairman was absolutely stunned by his grandson's sheer audacity. But Mook confidently assured him that there was 0 risk. There was no way they would lose. Impressed, the big boss gave in. He told the boy to do as he pleased and promised to arrange the transfer. The cash would be sent discreetly to America, but with a final warning. Lose this money and there would be no second chances. Mook nodded obediently. In truth, he needed those massive funds out of the country immediately. That way, his greedy uncles would never be able to touch his wealth. But managing such an astronomical sum alone was going to be a nightmare. He needed a proxy. That was when a legendary figure crossed his mind. The Super Ant, a ruthless hunting dog for major foreign investment firms. Back in the late 1990s, this man shook the local stock market. Starting small, he survived endless failures and massive financial accidents. Yet he made hundreds of billions in just 10 years, Hang Kong Dong. Fast forward a bit, and Mook arrives at the rundown Moonson Motel. Director Ha had tracked him down easily, noting the man was drowning in massive debt. Still, the director wondered why Mook was so eager to find a ruined investor. Stepping inside, Mook heads straight to the front desk, looking for Hang Kong Dong. Startled, the clerk immediately asks if he is some kind of police officer. She claims nobody signs guest registries here, so she has no idea about names. So Mook asks if there is a young man in his 20s staying long-term. Seeing her hesitate, he quickly offers a thick stack of cash to jog her memory. Funny how a little cash instantly cures amnesia. She admits she still doesn't know his name, but confirms a young man lives there. As she offers to go check on him, the universe works its magic. The very target they are discussing walks right out, yawning lazily. The clerk points him out instantly, but the young man immediately panics. He bolts straight for the stairs, with Mook chasing close behind him. Mook shouts his name, pleading for him to stop and just talk. The frantic chase leads them to the rooftop, where the panicked man prepares to jump. Mook begs him to step back, shouting that he isn't a debt collector. Shivering in absolute shock, the man slowly pauses to listen to his words. Mook takes a slow breath, gently repeating his plea to just talk. Still terrified, the genius investor asks if they are really not loan sharks. That question makes Mook pause, because technically he kind of is one. Soon after, they arrive together at the local Myeong-real estate office. Mook confirms they have the right spot, but a shivering Han is terrified. He warns that the thugs inside are incredibly dangerous and scary. But Mook smiles, they are only here to pay off his massive debt. Inside, two men are having a meal. They freeze in absolute shock at the sudden intrusion. They clearly despise seeing Han Kaoyong. A fat-bellied thug steps right up to him. He aggressively asks Han if he came all this way just to die. But the moment he reaches for Han, Moon-hyuk grabs his arm with iron grip. Instantly, Moon-hyuk twists his arm behind his back, locking him down. Furious and in pain, the man screams, demanding to know who Moon-hyuk is. Moon-hyuk calmly tells him they are here to pay, call the boss. Right on cue, the boss walks in, asking about all the noise. He stops dead in his tracks when he spots Han standing there. Smiling, he says they have been looking everywhere for him. Then he demands the cash. That is when Moon-hyuk steps in to block him. He offers to clear Han's debt and asks for the total figure. The boss explains Han borrowed 5 million won 6 months ago at 30%. At a monthly fee of 22% plus extra late fees, Moon-hyuk quickly loses patience. He tells the shark to stop playing with the books and just name the total. The boss chuckles, noting that Moon-hyuk seems very experienced. He praises him for being quick on the uptake. He demands 50 million won, talk about an absolute scam right there. Hearing that absolute bombshell, Han completely loses his mind in shock. Just a few days ago they said 25 million, how did it double so fast? The boss just grins and points out that everything is written right there in the contract. He mockingly calls him shameless for failing to read the fine print. He lists the extra fees, 17 million just to hunt him down. Plus 8 million for emotional distress, bringing the total to 50 million. We all know how these sharks work. Turning 5 million into 50 is normal magic here. Han shakes with pure rage at this blatant, incredibly unfair scam. But Moon-hyuk knows loan sharks exist solely to bleed desperate people completely dry. Seeing his anger, the boss quickly turns threatening. He warns Han to lose the attitude after running from his debts. He threatens to tear his flesh off, while Han trembles in absolute terror. Moon-hyuk simply asks if 50 million won settles it. The boss promises to shred the contract the moment he sees the cash. Moon-hyuk asks to make a quick phone call, and the boss allows it. He dials Director Ha, ordering him to ready 50 million won immediately. He gives the address and hangs up, stating the cash is coming. It will arrive in 15 minutes. The loan shark is completely stunned. He is thrown off by how casually this young guy is behaving. He asks why Moon-hyuk is paying a massive debt for a stranger. Moon-hyuk explains they only just met, but he has business with Han. That is the sole reason he is covering the heavy bill. Impressed by his cold composure, the boss actually offers him a job. Moon-hyuk politely declines, mentioning he is just a student for now. The shark insists, telling him to get in touch after graduation. Moon-hyuk realizes he has absolutely no memory of this man. He will likely disappear soon anyway, so he declines the offer. The actual work, asking what a guy could even earn in this tiny shoebox office. Totally catching the loan shark off guard, the lackeys got furious, but Moon-hyuk kept going. He calmly warned them that even thugs should know their limits. Instead of threatening debtors with muscle, the boss smirked, saying he actually loved doing that, and asked if Moon-hyuk had any respect. Firing right back, Moon-hyuk scoffed at the idea of a dirty loan shark teaching manners. That absolutely did it. He ordered his goons to grab Moon-hyuk and teach him a lesson. Meanwhile, Han watched with sheer panic, looking way more terrified than Moon-hyuk himself. Moon-hyuk did not even blink. He simply glanced at his watch. Time was up. Right on cue, the door swung open. Moon-hyuk smirked. He knew exactly who was here. Perfect timing. Director Ha stepped inside, calmly asking if there was some kind of trouble. The two thugs tried to play tough, immediately barking out to ask who he was. The fat one waddled forward, asking how he dared to barge in and if he wanted to die. He kept pushing the director, asking if he was with the other two, and threatening to beat him up too, but the boss, he froze in place. Recognizing Director Ha, the boss panicked and yelled at his men to shut up immediately. In a flash, he was bowing deeply before the director to show his respect. One confused subordinate whispered, asking if the boss actually knew this guy. He snapped back that everyone in Myeongdong knew the legendary director under Chairman Chin. Trembling, the loan shark asked what brought such a powerful man to his trashy office. Ignoring the fake politeness, Director Ha simply handed a heavy briefcase over to Moon-hyuk. He respectfully called him young master. Hearing that, the loan shark completely froze. He realized with pure horror that Moon-hyuk was the grandson of Chairman Chin himself. Talk about picking the worst person to mess with, the director asked what happened. Moon-hyuk shrugged it off as nothing special, saying he was just paying a friend's debt. Then he mocked the loan shark, noting the boss cared more about manners than cash. Terrified, the loan shark dropped straight to his knees, begging Moon-hyuk for mercy. He cried out that he had made a terrible mistake by not recognizing him sooner. Since his thick-headed goons were still standing, he screamed at them to kneel down too. He panicked, yelling that this was Chairman Chin's actual grandson they had just threatened. Within seconds, all three were on the floor apologizing. Han watched, completely speechless. Finally, Moon-hyuk calmly tossed the heavy briefcase of money right onto the table. He confidently told the loan shark to take the cash, ordering him to count it. After a quick check, the trembling boss confirmed it held exactly 50 million won. With the payment made, Moon-hyuk coldly demanded that he hand over the contract immediately. Terrified of the consequences, the loan shark scrambled to hand over the envelope. Without uttering a single word, Moon-hyuk passed the papers to Han to verify everything. Hands shaking in disbelief, Han stared at the debt document for a brief second. Then he suddenly started ripping the paperwork to shreds right in front of them. He tore it apart until nothing remained of the worthless contract. Everyone stood stunned. Moon-hyuk turned to the loan shark, asking if the debt was officially settled now. The boss nodded eagerly, confirming it was fully paid, but Moon-hyuk was not done yet. He calmly suggested they do a little more math, leaving the loan shark confused. Moon-hyuk argued that as compensation for the mental trauma from their threats, he wanted something. He took 10 million won right back out of the case. The boss was terrified. Completely clueless, the loan shark could not comprehend Moon-hyuk's fearless attitude. He demanded another 15 million for finding Han, and another 10 million. For bothering the director, control was slipping away. He asked what Moon-hyuk was doing. The reply was ice cold. He was just settling his debts the exact same way they did, with no remorse. He demanded 15 million for wasted time, total 50 million. With that settled, can I take the cash, he asked. The loan shark protested loudly, claiming the young man was pushing things way too far. Moon-hyuk shot back instantly, claiming he was only following their own rules. And he was not wrong. The stunned gangster stood there, looking completely defeated and speechless. Director Ha just watched silently, trusting Moon-hyuk completely. Moon-hyuk declared everything settled. It was time to go. Before walking out, he told the director to handle these men permanently. He ordered that they must never enter Myeongdong again. He promised to execute the order immediately, right before Moon-hyuk and Han walked out. Left alone, the director prepared to deal with the remaining loan sharks. He sat down slowly and calmly, demanding to know exactly who they worked for in this city. The leader whispered President Sak Kang-ho. Terror filled the room. No one had any idea what was coming. Later, the duo walked down the street together. They sat at a food stall. Han drank vodka, looking relieved. Finally, that heavy, crushing burden was completely gone from his shoulders. Moon-hyuk watched silently. Instead of answering, Han simply stared. Who are you really? He asked. Staring, he asked who the kid really was, getting 50 million so easily. You made hardened gangsters tremble in fear. Moon-hyuk calmly replied that he was a student. He showed his ID card. Han laughed, refusing to believe him. Han begged him to stop playing these ridiculous games and finally reveal his true, hidden identity. Is your grandfather Kaeon Tyson, some kind of legendary loan shark boss? Moon-hyuk shook his head, stating his background did not matter because he came here with a purpose. Still discouraged, Han pointed out that the kid already had everything. and asked what a powerful kid could possibly want from a ruined stockbroker. Moon-hyuk got straight to the point, asking him to simply do what he did best. Trade stocks. Han hesitated immediately, vividly remembering how he lost everything. He lost everything and piled up massive debts doing exactly that. Moon-hyuk just smiled. He asked him to imagine having enough massive capital to crush any market manipulator. Han agreed instantly, saying he could easily do it. With money I could easily rule the market, but I have none. At that exact moment, Moon-hyuk slid a thick envelope across the table to him. He told him to open it, explaining that this money should be used. Start trading tomorrow, he said. It does not matter if you lose it all. Shaking, Han opened the envelope and found 100 million check. Moon-hyuk explained this was just a simple contract deposit to kickstart their massive new business. Now Han had to prove his worth, but there was one catch. Moon-hyuk would choose the stock, and Han must obey without question. Confused, Han asked why he trusted him. They barely even knew each other. He even questioned what stopped him from taking the money and fleeing the country. Moon-hyuk casually tells Jong-yong that he does not care if he runs away with the cash, because he knows Jong-yong would just invest it in stocks anyway, even abroad. This completely catches Jong-yong off guard, leaving him thoroughly embarrassed. Moon-hyuk continues, explaining that just as Jong-yong does not need to know his identity, he does not care what kind of person Jong-yong is. He is simply handing him a massive opportunity, wanting him to prove his skills. This bold attitude leaves Jong-yong completely speechless. Moon-hyuk recalls what he read in Jong-yong's biography. If South Korea had only given this genius a fair shot, and if the stock market had been clean, he would have never become a corporate hound. Now, Moon-hyuk is ready to offer Jong-yong the chance to prove his true worth. In return, however, Jong-yong must become his personal hound and work for him. Moon-hyuk knows that if Jong-yong moves exactly as planned, they will secure enough capital to crush his rival uncles. Still, he knows that one crucial piece is missing to build his empire, a raw, physical force willing to fight for him. Now watch, this is where he turns his eyes to Park Dong-soo, doing out in Busan. Meanwhile, on a typical night, the protagonist's mob enemies gather in a nightclub. Among them, a heavyset gangster named Seong-ho objects to the lazy plan of just eliminating Dong-soo and dividing the city. He warns that Dong-soo once had the power to conquer all of Busan, but now he lacks his best men since his top lieutenants were locked up. That is why Seong-ho believes that no one will stand up for Park Dong-soo, making a swift strike. All they need to wipe him out completely, but a bald gangster in the corner asks if they actually have official orders for this, arguing that they need a solid excuse or they will spark an all-out gang war that will destroy them both. Even so, Seong-ho assures everyone there is nothing to fear since he already received direct orders to watch Dong-soo and is fully determined to seize control of Busan. Meanwhile, inside Busan prison, Park Dong-soo is speaking with an older, veteran inmate, promising to keep their operations running smoothly until he is released. The senior, however, reveals that he plans to retire the second he gets out because he is simply too old, telling Dong-soo to take care of the business as if it were his own. Their quiet conversation is suddenly cut short by a guard announcing that visiting time is over. While they say their goodbyes, the old boss says it was great to see him after so long, advising him to keep working hard but avoid visiting too often. With a heavy look, he quietly warns Dong-soo to stay safe, a message the young boss clearly understands, keeping silent as they share one last respectful bow. Later, inside a luxurious, heavily protected car, Dong-soo's lawyer asks if the meeting went well. Dong-soo sighs that the old man has aged terribly, leaving him with a heavy heart. A young subordinate beside him notes that the two of them seem incredibly close, which prompts Dong-soo to share his past. He explains that he was raised by his grandfather after being abandoned by his parents, and when his grandfather passed away, he could not even afford a proper funeral. That was when Yang-nim, the very inmate he just visited, took him in. Dong-soo admits he wanted to drop out of school to join him, but Yang-nim handed him 3 million to finish his studies first. Upon graduating, Dong-soo returned and received another 10 million to think things over for one more month. Exactly 1 month later, Dong-soo returned with every single coin, declaring that serving his big brother made perfect sense. He valued it more than any amount of cash. Hearing this, Yang-nim figured the kid was completely crazy. He hired him anyway, later admitting he expected the kid to just take the money and run. Reflecting on the past, Dong-soo deeply regretted not telling Hyung-nim about the betrayal 3 years ago. Speaking up back then could have easily kept his boss out of prison. The young man sitting next to him asked if he meant the time he was saved. That close call where a random student told him exactly what was going to happen. Thinking of Moon-hyuk instantly cheered Dong-soo up, remembering how that kid was an absolute legend. He was genuinely excited to see him again, especially since he was heading to Busan. Right on cue, Dong-soo finally crossed paths with Moon-hyuk at the Sasang market. They greeted each other, and Dong-soo immediately pointed out how much Moon-hyuk had grown, joking that all that milk he drank must have actually worked. After trading some quick updates, Dong-soo introduced his personal lawyer to Moon-hyuk. Meeting for the first time, they quickly turned their attention back to business. Dong-soo assured him that turning their syndicate into a legitimate corporation would be easy. He even hired the exact legal help Moon-hyuk had requested earlier. Cutting straight to the chase, Moon-hyuk asked how much of Busan they currently controlled. Dong-soo replied that once they locked down the Hyundai district, they were basically set. They only needed a few reliable guys to manage the new territory. Still, he wondered why Moon-hyuk was rushing when they had 6 months left. Moon-hyuk explained that the current war on crime in Seoul left massive power vacuums. Rival gangs were already scrambling to reclaim their lost territories. But their strategy meeting was suddenly cut short. The doors flew open as a panicked lackey screamed that they were under attack. All the rival factions had suddenly joined forces to crush them. Terrified, Dong-soo rushed to the front door, coming face to face with the mob. Nightclub thugs were pouring inside, locking their eyes directly onto him. A complete knife to the back, Dong-soo stared, his chest tightening in shock. His own men had betrayed him. Smirking, they asked how he had been. As a mixture of fury and dread consumed him, he prepared to fight. The tension peaked as the mob closed in, led by a heavy mobster named Sang-ho. Sang-ho spotted Moon-hyuk in the crowd, but honestly, he could not care less. In his mind, this just made the slaughter a whole lot more entertaining. Moon-hyuk silently watched the chaos unfold, analyzing the sudden betrayal. Dong-soo stared at the traitors, completely unable to process this. Who ordered this, he demanded, his voice cracking, but Sun-ho only laughed. He claimed no one ordered it. Dong-soo brought this entirely on himself. Nobody in the room was willing to tolerate his absolute tyranny anymore. A mustached traitor offered a weak, insincere apology, asking for his understanding. Observing this, Moon-hyuk realized Dong-soo had been way too soft on his men. Meanwhile, Dong-soo desperately wondered why they were turning on him like this. They snapped back that they had to make a living too. They simply could not let him monopolize the entire city for himself. The crushing weight of their betrayal cut deeper than any physical wound. Suddenly, the lawyer screamed. He had already called for backup. They just had to survive for 10 long minutes until backup arrived. Sensing the extreme danger, Sun-ho charged forward with his knife, shouting that he'd finish things quickly. Moon-hyuk stayed completely calm, asking if Dong-soo wanted backup, but Dong-soo saw no reason to wait and leaped right into the fray, unleashing heavy punches on a thug wielding a blade. Then, as another goon tried to sneak up with a wooden club, Dong-soo dropped him with a brutal punch to the ribs, sending him crashing down in absolute agony. Right then, the loyal men still standing by Dong-soo joined the brutal brawl, throwing wild punches, but then a traitor sneaked after. The lawyer with a heavy pipe. Luckily, Sun-ho saw him coming, moving fast. The lawyer sliced the attacker's wrist and followed it up by slashing his thigh, sending blood spraying everywhere. Even so, Dong-soo and his lawyer were completely surrounded by mutinous traitors. Dong-soo casually noted that his lawyer was remarkably deadly with a blade, jokingly asking if he sliced raw sashimi for a living. Hearing this, the lawyer fired back. He wouldn't be employed if he only knew how to write with a simple pen. Grinning, Dong-soo asked if he owed extra cash for this unexpected combat service, and the lawyer smirked, saying he would never refuse money. But hearing their banter, the heavy gang leader angrily ordered his men to strike. Dong-soo shouted that they'd finish their conversation after the brawl was over, running straight back into the fight. Instantly, he planted a massive kick on a nearby thug, sending him flying, while his lawyer kept carving up goons with his blade. Dong-soo was an absolute beast with his bare fists, pulverizing the crowd until someone blindsided him, smashing a heavy wooden bat right across his bloody face. Dazed and bleeding, he was staring down a killing blow from a former ally, but he somehow surged back up and drove a devastating fist right into the traitor's face. The guy crashed backward, losing his weapon, and before he could even crawl away, Dong-soo was standing over him, stomping down with cold, merciless eyes. Just then his allies shouted in worry about his bleeding head, but the gang surrounded them. Once more, that was when the heavy gang leader charged Dong-soo directly and plunged a knife deep into his stomach, bringing them both crashing down. Thankfully, Dong-soo caught the blade before it could pierce his vitals, though blood was pouring out. Rapidly, the heavy boss sneered at Dong-soo, saying he shouldn't complain about dying since he was the one who humiliated him in front of everyone. But during his arrogant victory speech, a brutal blow smashed right into the back of his neck, knocking him completely senseless. It was Moon-hyuk who stepped forward and asked his bloody ally if he was okay. Dong-soo muttered that this whole mess was just embarrassing. But the heavy leader wasn't finished. Blinded by absolute rage, he stumbled back up, gripping his knife and lunging at Moon-hyuk, but Moon-hyuk easily stepped aside. Furious, the gangster kept lunging, screaming that everything was entirely Moon-hyuk's fault before trying to stab him one last time, but Moon-hyuk easily blocked the strike and smashed a fist into his face, finishing the man off with a brutal kick right between his legs, leaving him groaning. In absolute agony, the defeated thug wheezed that Moon-hyuk would never get away with this, promising that he would hunt him down wherever he fled. Moon-hyuk just grabbed him tightly by the shirt and demanded to know his identity with a deadly stare. That cold question made the heavy gangster realize how utterly insignificant he was compared to Moon-hyuk's unbelievable power. To end it, Moon-hyuk delivered one final devastating punch. Arrogance. Finally, Moon-hyuk ended the trash with a brutal punch to the bleeding out on the cold floor, barely keeping his eyes open. A loyal subordinate cradles Dong-soo in his arms, desperately asking if he is okay as blood pools beneath them. Suddenly, the entire building is swarmed by Dong-soo's loyal men. They immediately get the green light to tear the invaders apart. The main crew cheers, relieved to see that backup finally arrived. In the end, Moon-hyuk's squad wins, forcing the rival bosses to their knees. Dong-soo confronts the traitors, demanding to know why they pushed things this far. He trusted them with their own territories just so they could support their families. And yet, they still stabbed him in the back without hesitation. Their dead silence infuriates Dong-soo, who yells at them to explain themselves. The mustached traitor just smirks at him, offering a completely fake, pathetic apology. Dong-soo ignores the insult, demanding to know who ordered the hit on his life. When silence answers him again, Dong-soo turns his cold gaze toward Boo-yeon. He warns the man that he is going to talk first. But Boo-yeon stays defiant, telling him to shut his mouth. Losing his patience, Dong-soo demands a blade and slams Boo-yeon onto the floor. Pinning him down, Dong-soo grabs his ankle and tells him he brought this on himself. Boo-yeon panics, screaming for him to wait, but there is no mercy left. Dong-soo slices clean through his ankle tendon, sending blood spraying across the concrete. The remaining bosses watch in absolute horror as the traitor screams in agony. Even with a severed tendon, Boo-yeon spits out one last curse. Unfazed, Dong-soo asks again who gave the order to betray him. Boo-yeon just sneers, mockingly claiming it was Dong-soo's own mother. Dong-soo calmly warns him that he is about to spend his life in a wheelchair. That threat finally breaks the silence, and Sung-ho begs them to stop. He confesses that the entire hit was ordered by Saseong himself. Dong-soo is frozen, completely unable to process those words. Why would his own sworn brother want him dead? Another traitor quickly chimes in, desperate to save his own skin. He confirms Saseong approached them, ordering them to switch sides. Dong-soo is completely shattered, but the man reveals the real motive. Saseong grew intensely paranoid because everyone else got busted by the cops except for him. He truly believed that Dong-soo had sold the entire syndicate out. Overwhelmed by absolute rage, Dong-soo immediately slices Boo-yeon's other ankle tendon too. Sometime later, once the blood is cleaned, Moon-hyuk sits down with Dong-soo. Their lawyer enters quietly, bringing a report on the aftermath. All the wounded are hospitalized, and the rebel bosses are heavily guarded. Looking utterly broken, Dong-soo asks if his boss really betrayed him. He cannot comprehend why Saseong would ever stab him in the back, especially since he took care of everything, keeping their families safe. But Moon-hyuk already knows the dark truth behind this betrayal. His future memories confirm Saseong actually murdered Dong-soo in the original timeline. If they let Saseong slide, the cycle of bloodshed will only repeat. He points out that Dong-soo's soft-hearted nature is what invited this. Being too kind only teaches cheap thugs to take advantage of you. To win him over and wipe out the others, making absolutely sure they could never return. Dong-soo was completely lost in his own thoughts, so Moon-hyuk suggested they organize the move first. He immediately took offense, snapping that Moon-hyuk did not know Sasang, his surrogate. A true father, Moon-hyuk coldly shot back that no real father orders his own son to be killed. He added that the gangsters of that bygone era did not care about loyalty, and that Dong-soo was simply the last fool clinging to an outdated romanticism. Moon-hyuk finished by saying it was completely obvious Sasang had sent him away, meaning Dong-soo needed to finally wake up from that dream. Furious at Moon-hyuk, Dong-soo tried to stand up, but his injuries were too severe for any sudden movements. Fed up with this endless hesitation, Moon-hyuk stood up and told Dong-soo to deal with his brother. Otherwise their entire deal was off, dead. As Moon-hyuk walked out, Dong-soo called out to stop him, asking what would happen if they kept going like this. Coldly, Moon-hyuk asked if he still looked like that weak kid from the hospital rooftop. He reminded Dong-soo that he offered him a real chance to work together on a plan involving both of their destinies, and if Dong-soo hesitated, he would have to reconsider everything. Moon-hyuk delivered a cold ultimatum, now or never. Did not resolve the Busausen situation by October, it was going to be the end for everyone. Talk is over. He slammed the door shut, leaving Dong-soo completely humiliated. The lawyer quietly remarked that Moon-hyuk was definitely no ordinary person for someone who was only 20, openly wondering what kind of crazy life the boy had actually lived. Dong-soo simply nodded, feeling proud to even know him. He was not kidding about him. Dong-soo knew Moon-hyuk was right in that relying solely on brute force would never keep them afloat. Without money, everything was just pointless nonsense. Money runs the entire world after all. Money. The lawyer then asked how they would proceed, holding his head high. Dong-soo declared that they would clean everything up and finally head to Seoul. Over at a luxury hotel, room service knocked on the door, noting that the guest had checked out 4 hours ago. Following procedure, she unlocked the door and stepped inside, and trust me, they were not ready for this scene. A mustached mobster hung lifeless from the ceiling. Meanwhile, in a nearby parking lot, another driver was complaining about a badly parked car with no contact number. When suddenly a bloody mobster fell right on top of the car. Inside a butcher shop, an employee went to grab ice from the freezer, only to find a brown mobster frozen solid inside. Elsewhere, Giant Boone was desperately escaping in his wheelchair, briefly managing to lose Park's pursuing men. He cursed at Dong-soo, calling him a bastard who broke his leg and was now trying to end him. In absolute desperation, he vowed revenge, screaming that he would never go down easily. But then his wheelchair smashed straight into a rock. The violent impact launched him straight into the freezing ocean, and he could not do a thing. Days later at Busausen prison, Park's lawyer arrived to meet Dong-soo's brother. He explained that he was visiting on behalf of Park and revealed that Dong-soo had been attacked a few days earlier by the rival Scene gang. The lawyer then handed a cigarette to the inmate, who silently recalled the brutal attack. He reassured him, saying that Dong-soo was completely safe, and the brother quietly replied he was glad to hear it, though his cold face did not look happy at all. Right then, the lawyer laid bare the accusation, claiming the brother himself ordered the hit attack. Hearing this absolute garbage made the brother snap, instantly denying everything. He asked if Dong-soo actually believed it, his hands trembling violently. His fingers could barely grip the cigarette before hurling it down in raw rage. He demanded to know if Dong-soo bought the story, saying if he did, Dong-soo should come and ask him face to face. The lawyer stayed silent, simply placing a recorder on the table. On the recording, a voice spoke. The recorded message apologized for not showing up in person, admitting he understood his brother's deep suspicion since he had to flee for safety. Escaping death, Dong-soo explained he had only been working hard to prepare a quiet life for his brother after his prison sentence ended. But now he had been ambushed, with rumors pointing to his own blood. He had refused to believe his brother did it, yet some doubts remained. Because of those creeping doubts, he promised he would still look after his family and his sister-in-law, before coldly asking his brother to vanish forever. Dong-soo warned that if he stayed alive, the beast within himself would grow, and far more blood would end up spilled. Refusing would make things miserable for both, so he demanded a decision. Utterly devastated, the young man looked up, asking if Dong-soo really uttered those painful words, the lawyer showing absolutely zero emotion. Confirmed it was true, the brother let those cold words settle, asking what Dong-soo actually planned to do after taking over Busausen himself. The lawyer revealed that once Busausen fell, Dong-soo would expand directly into Seoul. Hearing this, the young man chuckled in complete disbelief, letting out a wild laugh, proudly boasting that his brother was the true kingpin. He stood, asking the lawyer to tell Dong-soo he was truly sorry. With a vacant stare, he begged him to stay safe and look after the family. Later, under a gloomy pouring rain, Dong-soo sat brooding in his office when the lawyer arrived, bearing news of his brother. He had died the day before. Dong-soo's silent grief was heavy, but he refused to break. Soon after, his crew silently closed in on rival territory, surrounding their enemies inside a loud nightclub. No survivors allowed. The cornered rivals spat that the ungrateful bastard had already arrived here. An old boss roared that Sasyang died because of Dong-soo's raw greed. Accusing him of trying to steal Hyundai, Dong-soo shrugged it off, replying, "The old-timer talked way too much," telling them to start the fight. Spitting insults, the veteran called Dong-soo a dog biting its own master. As Dong-soo's killers lunged forward with absolute violence, within minutes everything was finished cleanly. Later, Dong-soo stood overlooking the ocean, throwing back shots. When his lawyer arrived to confirm the Hyundai purge was totally finished, he praised his loyal crew, pouring a steady glass for his attorney, watching the pieces of his shattered world finally align. At that moment, a sudden sorrow filled his eyes as he used his name, quietly asking if they would stand embarrassed in front of Moon-hyuk again. Meanwhile, at the moneylender's mansion, the grandfather questioned Moon-hyuk about the government's latest moves. Tan noted some strange moves. Dozens of high-ranking officials in finance and economics had suddenly vanished, supposedly taking vacations or taking trips, but none of them had actually left the country. He added that he suspected they were plotting something in secret, since not even the head of economic affairs he infiltrated knew what was going on. Moon-hyuk, on the other hand, was already fully aware of the situation and knew a real name financial system would finally be implemented. Moon-hyuk also knew that some chaebols and financial companies noticed the strange atmosphere, but without those economic officials, they had no way to get the details. When his grandfather asked, Moon-hyuk replied that a new real-name financial system was secretly being prepared. Worried by this revelation, Tan agreed that it was entirely possible, since a massive policy like that would require absolute secrecy. He then asked what Moon-hyuk thought, predicting the announcement would happen during the next New Year speech. Moon-hyuk, however, disagreed. Knowing the president's personality, he believed the president's aggressive personality, he would likely push the measure through by August. Shocked, Tan questioned if that was not too soon. Since August was just next month, Moon-hyuk explained that the timing of the announcement was the most critical element of this new financial system, so it had to be dropped when least expected. His words left the old money lender deeply thoughtful. Still, Tan insisted it was too early, citing it as a presidential campaign promise that would be incredibly difficult to pass through the assembly. Moon-hyuk guessed the other chaebols probably reached that same conclusion, which was exactly why they would be caught completely off guard. When the system finally dropped, Moon-hyuk confidently predicted that in less than a week following the announcement, the bill would clear the National Assembly without a vote, gaining unanimous support from all parties. Realizing this, Tan asked if they should start preparing by sorting out their third-party and anonymous accounts. His grandfather replied that just as he advised last time, those anonymous accounts were secure, but the third-party ones would take longer due to their massive scale. Moon-hyuk knew he could not convince his grandfather completely, but saving just the anonymous accounts would still protect a massive fortune, preventing the devastating losses from his past life. Tan then confirmed that 400 billion won had been transferred to America, and the director had laundered everything seamlessly, prompting Moon-hyuk to thank him deeply for his help. Right then, the old man asked if Moon-hyuk had forgotten about his schedule for that day, reminding his grandson that if he was going to handle the chaebols in the future, he had to understand how they think. For that exact reason, he was to meet a living legend of Korean chaebols, urging Moon-hyuk to learn as much as possible from him. Later, inside the car, Moon-hyuk told director Ha that by the end of the year, he would send Hong Kyung-yang to America, instructing the director to transfer all the funds From the United States account over to him, the director asked if this man was truly trustworthy, since 400 billion won was an astronomical sum. Manhwa then revealed his plan to establish an investment firm where he would hold the majority of the shares, ensuring Hong Kong was heavily rewarded for his role. Director Ha. He agreed, promising to wire the massive funds as soon as the official order was given, but a lingering question troubled Manhwa. Who exactly was this loyal director? Confused by the sudden question, Director Ha stayed completely silent. Manhwa explained that Ha was a wild card, capable of doing anything. He perfectly executed Tyson's commands. Manhwa also knew his darkest secret. He was behind President Yu Jiang's disappearance from Mongdong. Ha responded coldly. He declared that when the chairman commands, he never asks questions. He simply obeys. That was his oath. Manhwa noticed his absolute obedience. Still curious, Manhwa asked if he would execute a completely meaningless order. He even used the example of a command that would surely kill him. Without a single second thought, Director Ha said he would comply instantly. He would obey without hesitation. Still unsatisfied, Manhwa pushed him further. What if his grandfather ordered him to kill his own beloved grandson? Remaining cold and calculating, Ha replied that he would have to obey. Right here is where Manhwa realized just how chillingly devoted this man was. Even in his past life, he had stayed fiercely loyal to his grandfather. After the old man's death, he vanished. This gave Manhwa an idea. With this new understanding, Manhwa asked Director Ha for a favor. He wanted to be introduced to someone with that same absolute loyalty. He needed someone who would follow his every order without question. He wanted a reliable shadow, someone he could trust with his life. Understanding his request, Director Ha promised to arrange everything very soon. Next up, they arrived at the grand mansion of Chaebol Chairman Song. The old chairman welcomed them warmly, highly curious about the young boy. He wanted to see the genius grandson everyone kept bragging about. Though he accepted the meeting, he doubted he could teach him anything. Manhwa gently replied that simply listening to his story was incredibly valuable. To him, the chairman represented the living history of Korean chaebols. Hearing such high praise, Chairman Song smiled, feeling slightly embarrassed. He admitted that if he had to trust anyone, it would be Tan. He fondly recalled the era when Manhwa's grandfather seemed completely invincible. That was until 1972, when a sudden government decree hit. The emergency decree froze all assets, demanding instant repayment of private loans. It completely devastated the loan sharks, starting a dark economic period. The strict policy forced all creditors to disclose where their money came from. This measure was so extreme, only a military regime could execute it. Si Yeonju noticed that the young man was incredibly well informed. He agreed that such a harsh policy was only possible back then. This environment actually birthed the massive, family-owned business groups. These groups eventually became the powerful chaebols during the Cold War. Back then, massive development projects required heavy capital to finance production. So these companies relied on loan sharks and accepted government contracts. Manhwa observed that the government eventually put an end to this practice. They justified the harsh action as a way to protect struggling debtors. The president nodded, explaining how difficult things became after that. Since private loan sharks are so rare nowadays, the young man had to ask. He wondered how his grandfather survived, so President Song started explaining. Old Tan resorted to absolute extremes by dousing himself in gasoline. Standing right before his debtors with a lighter, he demanded they accept his terms. The choice was clear: return his money immediately, or he would burn everything down. He pulled this insane stunt on any company that lagged behind on payments. He did not just threaten their factories, he promised to eliminate their families too. Tan was genuinely prepared to do whatever it took to settle accounts. Naturally, terrified businesses began prioritizing his debts over everyone else's. They paid Tan first, even if other creditors got absolutely nothing. Every merchant back then feared him. With his rivals cleared out, his business boomed. He prospered enormously, eventually dominating the entire private loan shark market. President Song finished the tale, noting that harsh policies and economic crises can actually become golden opportunities depending on how you handle them. The topic shifted when the young man asked for President Song's direct opinion. He wanted to discuss the real name financial system, arguing it was completely inevitable. Korea simply could not rely on an underground black market economy forever. However, President Song strongly disagreed with the proposed timing. He believed the nation needed to grow more, and development is rarely clean. Sometimes utilizing dirty capital is simply a necessary evil to keep building. He admitted the reform was coming, but knew it would trigger total chaos. The sudden shock would throw the entire financial sector into massive disarray. In his mind, not even a strict military regime could easily force this through. Any national leader would hesitate significantly before pulling a trigger that massive. The protagonist then asked if a shock like that could bankrupt South Korea. And if things fell apart, would there be a way to get incredibly rich? Seriously, think about it. A national collapse is the ultimate goldmine for the bold. While a crisis brings immense pain to the masses, it lets others thrive. The old man raised an eyebrow, asking if he was talking about total bankruptcy. The young man calmly replied that it was merely a hypothetical theory. Still, he estimated that a massive hit like that wasn't too many years away. President Song declared his absolute belief that South Korea would never fall. Yet he admitted that if such a rare chance appeared, he would grasp it. If he didn't, someone else would eagerly step in and steal the massive fortune. That is just how the financial game operates. One person's loss is another's gain. In a capitalist world, there is simply no room for equal victories. Hearing this only deepened the uncomfortable feeling growing inside the protagonist. He had never actually thought about the real consequences of a countrywide crash. Intrigued, President Song asked why he was so incredibly worried about it. The young man explained that severe financial crises inevitably hit other nations. Observing those foreign disasters made him reflect deeply on Korea's own vulnerabilities. The old man chuckled heartily, highly impressed by his long-term planning. He praised him, saying that looking ahead is exactly how big money is made. In fact, the kid reminded him immensely of his cunning grandfather. Still, he warned him never to let greed take over, regardless of the payout. To him, the economy was a living, breathing beast. Feed your greed, and it will turn into a monster that devours you whole. Cut to Uido. The financial heart of South Korea, a reality unchanged for the last 20 years. It is here that Min-jun arrives at Sadin's office after a very long time. Sadin greets him with a massive grin, saying he looks absolutely fantastic. Min-jun credits his success to Sadin, who previously urged him to buy biotech. That hot tip made him some serious cash, but why the sudden meeting? Sadin chuckles and admits he is just looking for a bit of fun. He looks back at yesterday, when that biotech stock was climbing like crazy. Right before the closing bell, Sadin bet his entire net worth on it. The next morning, when the market opened, the stock hit its maximum price limit. In just one day, Sadin turned 50 million won into 80 million won. That's why stock junkies can never quit their addiction. Min-jun agrees completely. It is a vicious addiction. He then asks Sadin how much cash he has. The answer is 20 million won. Hearing this, Min-jun gives him urgent advice. Sell everything next Monday. Sadin, however, is not buying it. He argues biotech is on fire, and you do not sell in a bull market. Sadin wants to hold strong and reinvest every cent, but Min-jun disagrees. He warns that on August 18th, a massive American brokerage firm will collapse. Sadin has heard his share of wild market predictions. He brushes this off as a pipe dream, so Min-jun challenges him. If you will not take advice, let us make a bet. Sadin agrees. Min-jun wins if biotech crashes after August 18th. If it holds, Sadin wins. The terms are set, but Sadin is still highly skeptical of this. He asks if this crash prediction is inside info or just guesswork. Sadin even jokes, will you go completely broke if you lose this? Min-jun smirks, asking if Sadin is getting cold feet. Sadin stands to make an absolute fortune, so what are the actual stakes here? If Min-jun wins, he takes every single dollar in Sadin's trading account. Sadin is stunned. 120 million won is no small change. In return, if Sadin wins, Min-jun will hand over 500 million. With those insane odds, Sadin gladly accepts. Min-jun is entirely confident. He flat out states that he never loses. Sadin just smiles back. Sadin claims he would hate to see him fail. Then Min-jun shifts focus. Did Sadin secure his American citizenship? Sadin is shocked. How did he know? Min-jun explains that this is the real reason he came here today. An American citizen's trading account will face far less scrutiny in Korea. That safety net is vital if their identities ever get leaked to regulators, especially if the financial authorities begin digging deep into their transactions. Sadin is nervous, asking if Min-jun has some hidden motive here. Min-jun wants Sadin to let him manage his account for major trades. Sadin needs to head to America, launch an investment firm, and recruit. Sadin thinks it sounds like the world is ending on August 18th. If his predictions are right, why not just build the firm here? Starting in Korea is faster, but Min-jun shakes his head. It has to be America. Sedan replied that his inability to move to the country did not change anything. He would gladly go with him. Then Min-jun revealed that once he won the bet, 400 billion won would land straight in their new company account. Sedan was frozen in absolute shock. That was when Min-jun explained his reasoning. The massive funds had to be managed in America for maximum financial freedom. But Sedan quickly pointed out that the United States tax rates were completely absurd. Transferring those massive sums back to Korea would be a nightmare to pull off. Min-jun agreed it was risky, but that was exactly where Sedan came into play. His partner's primary mission was to funnel those massive assets back home safely. If it failed, they would pivot. Still, Sedan wondered how long this could last. He could not hide abroad forever, and Min-jun's prediction felt far too certain. Instead of explaining, Min-jun casually nudged him to finish his coffee in peace. By the 18th, this whole crisis would feel as cheap as a canned drink. After all, he was the self-proclaimed stock genius of the next generation. Soon enough, the news broadcast confirmed his predictions with a massive announcement. The government was freezing all private bank deposits and institutional assets. This sudden, brutal shockwave caught the entire nation completely off guard. The president himself announced extreme measures to halt the bleeding. All foreign currency trades were suspended, throwing the experts into absolute chaos. Nobody had seen this coming, and panic immediately gripped the street. Even the central bank looked completely blind to what was actually happening. The head of economic affairs admitted he found out from his television screen. He was just as clueless as any ordinary citizen watching the morning broadcast. It remained a total mystery who in the high command authorized this move. Meanwhile, main accounts holding over 100 billion won were frozen. These shadow funds belonged to foreign shell companies that were now totally blocked. The central bank chief realized a massive, silent operation had bypassed them. He immediately mobilized the tax service and financial police to investigate. While other financial titans scrambled to contain their rising panic, Min-jun was calmly explaining the situation to his boss, completely unfazed by the storm. He insisted he had no illegal inside leaks, relying entirely on analysis. He simply watched the shifting market trends and analyzed the minister's psychology. He claimed that any smart investor could have easily predicted the outcome. The policy itself was clearly outlined during the previous presidential campaign. His superior argued that pinning down the exact date was impossible. Yet Min-jun replied that his perfect intuition made all the difference. He revealed that he had closely studied the minister's own policy proposals. From there, it was obvious the sudden announcement would drop this week. The boss had to admit that Min-jun's reading of the man was correct. He knew the politician was hasty, but the global impact still worried him. Min-jun casually told him to relax and look after his own health instead. The global tide had shifted, and nothing could stop what was coming next. Impressed, the director handed full operational control over to Min-jun starting tomorrow. Their current strategy was to hold back from major investments during this chaos. Even though the government blocked multiple shell accounts, Min-jun was already safe. They managed to transfer and save a pretty massive portion of the funds. With help from both Kim Min-jun and the cooperative American authorities, they saved the cash. This became the collateral they needed to launch a massive new investment firm. Kim Min-jun asked if they really intended to use those accounts over in the States. His boss confirmed it was pretty much inevitable if they wanted real global power. It would grant them an absolutely massive amount of influence in the international market. The boss figured the chaos wouldn't last very long anyway. Soon, foreign governments would step in to stabilize things. That is when the capital would shift, creating some incredible opportunities for them. Because of this, the boss decided to hand over all the accounts. Kim Min-jun stood there in absolute shock at the sheer scale of the funds now under his control. His boss promised he would be the one managing everything from now on. This went way beyond their first agreement, but it was fully earned. Kim Min-jun had fully proven that he was a man worthy of their absolute, complete trust. He now had total freedom to act, which changed the game entirely. The young man tried to process this crazy turn of events. His boss had indeed moved every single one of those major accounts directly to his company. He now held the keys to every single subsidiary fund in the country. We are talking about massive amounts of cash and the power behind them. Every single bit of this wealth came from one incredibly precise calculation he had made. The raw power to guide massive corporations was now resting in his hands. A wild, almost manic grin slowly spread across his face as the reality of it hit him. Now the scene cuts to a sprawling luxury high-rise piercing the night sky. Deep inside a private office, an anxious employee stands before his sitting boss. The old chairman leans forward, demanding to know where the target went. He wants to know if the market will find out about their crisis tomorrow. Lee Yong-min from the strategic planning team can barely look him in the eye. He bows deeply, stammering out how incredibly sorry he is. He explains that nobody expected the guy to just vanish into thin air. The chairman snaps, demanding to know what happened to their billions. Lee Yong-min quietly admits that the runaway has gone completely silent. Leaning forward with cold eyes, the old man lets loose. He screams, "Is that seriously the absolute best you can do?" He says he is far too old to be dealing with this garbage. He cannot believe they let some young punk play them like absolute fools. Lee Yong-min keeps apologizing, admitting 300 billion is gone. They managed to track the cash to the first couple of bank accounts. But the trail went cold once the money hit those anonymous accounts. The furious chairman demands they grab whatever they can from those accounts. He barks out another order to hunt down Cheel's grandson right now. The employee whispers that the computer used for the theft is gone. The whole thing was executed like a highly precise surgical strike. The thief clearly knew all of the company's deepest secrets. Panic washes over the chairman as he realizes they are completely exposed. Lee Yong-min adds that only a single smashed hard drive remains. Min explained that the skill on the screen was far beyond any ordinary level. He warned that the culprit likely already knew about their secret funds. They had intentionally drained those accounts straight from the main source. Shocked, the chairman desperately wondered how this could have happened. Realizing the kid had seen through everything from the start, he panicked. Kwando Ryan knew everything and had completely played them. He roared at his men to find him immediately. Meanwhile, in another office, two allies plotted. The glasses-wearing man was highly impressed by Kim's crazy predictions. The power of a simple artificial intelligence was absolutely unreal. That calculation was the sole reason they dumped all their stock. Kim nodded, confirming that absolute chaos was about to hit the financial market. The next day, Seiden asked how he could have possibly known all this. Kim shrugged it off, claiming it was just a simple hunch. Seiden was stunned. That absurd hunch had just made him wipe out 150 accounts. He seriously doubted a low-level artificial intelligence could pull off something so massive. Kim smiled, a genius mind never forgets, but there was no need to worry. Every single trace was gone and they were completely safe. Now for the real play. Once the market opens tomorrow, the JS Group stocks are going to crash hard. Prices will plummet across the board, completely destroying the smaller companies underneath them. Seiden looked at him, asking if this meant they were about to get rich. Kim smiled, absolutely, as long as they played their cards right. They just had to short the exact stocks destined to crash in the morning. Seiden admitted he never expected Kim to actually risk everything on this play. But this was their ultimate shot. Kim leaned in with final instructions. He told Seiden to open a fresh stock account under his own name tomorrow. He needed to use that specific account to bet heavily against the failing companies. Seiden gasped. Did he really comprehend what 10 billion won in common stocks meant? Kim ignored the concern, coolly stating that the freefall would begin tomorrow. The plan was simple: dump every high-performing tech stock at the limit price. And the second the market bottomed out, they would buy it all back. He made it absolutely clear: do not hesitate, just follow the plan. Sell every single share exactly as instructed, without asking any more questions. Seiden warned that a move like this would tear the entire market apart. Kim just smirked, completely unfazed by the potential chaos. He told him it was just a hunch, and nobody could ever prove otherwise. To stay off the radar, Sidon had to split the trades into small batches. Once the panic settled, they would secretly buy back every share they could grab. He told him to ignore the risk and throw every single penny into those stocks. They clinked glasses, sealing a deal that would change their lives forever. As Sidon drank, reality set in. They had just launched a digital nuke. Soon, the nation's entire financial market would completely fall apart. Just as Kim predicted, the next morning brought absolute financial ruin. At Hunshin Bank, a wave of sheer panic swept through the crowded digital branch. A slight delay in opening the doors was enough to trigger the angry mob. Terrified bank employees bowed, trying to calm the screaming crowd outside, explaining that the opening was run by an AI, but the furious crowds demanded their money back immediately. Amid the pure panic, brutal arguments and fights over a spot in line broke out. One guy even argued he should be helped first because he had been a VIP client for 20 years. This massive run on withdrawals paralyzed the bank, and honestly, this was just the opening storm. Panic quickly spread through the Korean stock exchange, leaving everyone in absolute chaos, where the trading boards displayed a dizzying, terrifying drop, completely painted in red. The second the market opened, more than 1,800 stocks crashed to rock bottom, hitting their lower price limits and leaving the entire nation completely stunned. From his office, Moon-hyuk watched the city below, knowing that the real game was only just beginning. He and his partner were determined to turn this crisis into their ultimate opportunity. Right on cue, his partner stepped into the office, looking completely exhausted and deeply nervous about their bold move. He nervously wiped his glasses while reporting to Moon-hyuk that the market was an absolute disaster zone. The crash was so severe that trading had to be halted multiple times. He truly believed the entire market would descend into madness, with desperate crowds losing their minds. In the streets, the government had even declared a national state of emergency to try and contain the growing panic. He then confirmed he had used the 10 billion won provided by Moon-hyuk to buy up everything he possibly could. He admitted it was terrifying to scoop up falling stocks without knowing the outcome, because even with his friend's prediction, the actual risk remained incredibly high. Finally, he asked the boss if they could really profit from such a nightmare scenario. Without answering him directly, Moon-hyuk calmly told him he did a great job and should go get some rest. The partner confessed that throwing around billions of won was almost too stressful to bear, saying his heart was in his throat and his hands would not stop shaking. Moon-hyuk then asked if he wanted to back out of the plan entirely. The trader with the glasses quickly replied that trading stocks was the most fun thing in the world. In fact, thanks to his friend's incredible guidance, he had gained a ton of confidence and was already starting to relax. With the first phase completed, Moon-hyuk ordered him to get back to the computer since they needed to act quickly before the market shifted, adding that he would take care of the rest. Moon-hyuk then announced his grand plans to found an unconventional investment firm, entirely self-funded. He was already in the process of registering a brand new corporation to handle the paperwork and manage their investments as their main priority. His companion asked what the point of all this was, and Moon-hyuk explained that this firm would be their primary vehicle for the hard work ahead. His partner with the glasses found the idea of an investment firm pretty ordinary, arguing that most of them worked the exact same way. Moon-hyuk agreed, but told him not to expect any typical business. He intended to build their very own private jet, a machine to carry them straight to the top. For a moment, his partner pictured himself sitting inside a luxury private plane, drinking expensive wine to celebrate their ultimate success. Snapping back to reality, he swore absolute loyalty to Moon-hyuk, promising to follow him to the very end. He begged never to be left behind, no matter what challenges lay ahead. The only way they would part ways was if Moon-hyuk walked out because things got too tough, or if he chose total betrayal. He then asked to personally name the new company. The protagonist agreed. They would call it Dream High Investments. They wanted to dream even higher. Meanwhile, the massive piles of cold currency collected from the Myeongdong's entire crypto cash had vanished without a single trace. The exchange shutdown sent shockwaves through the city, freezing the entire Myeongdong loan market. Loan sharks who just lost billions of won got a sudden, terrifying taste of pure hell. Things were no different for the district chiefs during their urgent meeting. One furious boss screamed at his terrified employee for completely failing to recover the cash. Even with criminal help, they failed. another chairman issued a dark warning. If they could not move that account in 4 days, they had no way to survive. Paying interest was completely out of the question. The entire situation was critical. Both corporate and personal accounts were locked down with 0 withdrawals allowed. The desperate district chiefs finally concluded they must contact their top IT team right away. To find a solution, they checked back, but the system remained unresponsive. While desperately hunting for any technical solution, they tried hard to maintain their outward composure. Keeping up appearances was crucial. Amid the heavy silence, someone asked a question. One man asked who was on their way, and another chief snapped at his ignorance. It was Chairman Wu's grandson, who had demanded to meet all Myeongdong chiefs. They were meeting today, and honestly, everyone knew things were about to get crazy. They highly suspected he was coming to claim the crown and force them under command. This disaster was deeply personal. For many, a lifetime of savings was gone. One Myeongdong boss watched 10 years of hard work vanish in an instant. His life savings disappeared just when his family desperately needed the cash. Then, the phone rang. Suddenly, Chairman Wu's grandson called, saying he was in a hurry and needed to change locations. Arriving at the new spot, he offered a cold, casual greeting to them. He wondered why everyone was standing, telling them they could sit. He casually told them to sit down, mocking that his neck hurt from looking down on them. The protagonist knew these desperate men were panicking over their stolen funds. Knowing their deep anxiety over the missing cash, he watched them tremble with quiet satisfaction. The entire loan market system was on the verge of collapsing completely. Trying to act tough, one chief claimed they had not suffered much. He credited Chairman Mu's quick thinking for saving their financial assets. Wu's grandson instantly realized they were just playing strong because they feared his absolute judgment. He noticed how every man seeking power pretended to be strong to protect their wounded pride. He decided to get straight to the point instead. The young heir made it clear he was not there for inheritance. He wanted to discuss crucial business with Myeongdong's actual power players. Then, looking them in the eye, he directly asked who among them would join him. One chief demanded a clearer explanation, so the young man laid it out. He wanted to know who would support him in taking over his grandfather's position. Before this succession battle became public, he wanted to hear their stance on a clear proposal. Any chairman who allied with him would get their stolen billions reimbursed. But for anyone who walked away today, they would get nothing. One final warning, Chairman Shyang Seongdae stepped forward to challenge him. Showing what they stand to gain, then he looks right at Ma En-bok. Telling him he has got it all wrong, no deal is happening. He is offering an opportunity, he will simply back the chosen heir. He will follow the heir, but he drops a dark, silent threat. If Vice Chairman Xiang is not chosen, they will pay, the young man notes Ma En-bok is clever, just like his grandfather always valued. He has his brother's features. Suddenly, one of the board members leaves. Thanking the host, now the young master asks Ma En-bok for his thoughts. Ma En-bok suggests waiting, keep your eyes and ears open, watch everything. They hold massive power in Myeongdong, even under the chairman they rule. Nobody can run this entire region without their support. This will not be easy for Chairman Wu's young grandson. They know his play. He knows their current desperate situation if he finds their frozen accounts. Their ultimate weakness is exposed, but the young master stops him right. There he calls Ma En-bok back. He's not stopping at all. His plan is bigger. He will use the late CEO's power and cash. To take full control, he looks right at Ma and directly asks his thoughts. On his bold proposal to cover all their losses, En-bok reacts in shock. He denies it immediately. Do you think I easily accept cheap bribes? The young master smiles. Chang Seongdae is not a fool to take bribes. But he knows Wu's old methods were selfish and greedy, so here is his real plan. He promises to rip the chairman's entire business. Right out of the underworld, watch, he will build a brand new order, placing them at the center. He will change their shady financial system into a clean model with legal interest rates. The government will oversee it, registering them as a legal credit firm running without risk. Over in Myeongdong, Chairman No is stunned by this wild idea. They will no longer be loan sharks. He confirms they will be safe from the prosecution's investigations and tax tracking, delegating all those risky parts to his own people. He confronts them directly. How long do No and Sik and Kim Ho-sik intend to carry this dirty Label of Myeongdong loan sharks. He planned this from the very start. Since taking over the Myeongdong finance company, those present realize his intention. He wants to legalize his grandfather's business. Woo's grandson asks them to wait 5 years. He guarantees that by then they can run their business with pride. If they follow him, they will be remembered as pioneers. Kim Ho-shik steps up to follow him. No In-sik explains his young daughter is about to start school soon. He wants her to understand his profession with pride. He would rather be known as a legal company president than a street moneylender. The young master questions No In-sik's true intentions, who replies that reality does not work that way. The young leader shrugs, telling him he is free to do as he pleases. He leaves the final decision in his hands. Facing this, No In-sik admits he no longer has any choice left. He kept the same energy, declaring that as an elder, he would just go with the flow. But despite this apparent acceptance, the young leader firmly warned him otherwise. If he tried to oppose him, a comfortable retirement would not be guaranteed. He had already decided that, if they had no intention of following him, he would deal with them his own way. He then turned to the others. He informed Yoo-jung, Kim Ho-shik, and No In-sik that they were out of Chaein Suman's group. His plan: break one of their legs and throw them out of the company. Elsewhere, 2 men in suits, including Sun Nam, were drinking and talking. They spoke of a secret reserve fund, which Sun Nam's companion confirmed was real. It was real. Sun Nam reflected on how they had been taking orders from the CEO's bratty grandson for some time, and he deeply distrusted the kid. He questioned how long the investment funds had been transferred abroad, demanding to know who was actually pulling the strings of their operation. It rankled him that his older brother was controlled by a 20-year-old punk. He had to know the kid's plan. Sun Nam doubted the business world would ever accept such a young successor, even if it was his brother's wish. The other investor agreed. They were getting old and had built this company, so they were not about to risk everything on some unproven kid.